going on.
Bro.
You're from. Oh yeah, I know who you
Bruh.
are, Leviathan. I
Bruh.
might play Subnautica again tomorrow night, just for funsies.
Once you
would
finish
be cool. I
Subnautica
like-
1, we should totally play Subnautica 2.
I have to buy it. I don't even own it.
I will purchase it for you.
Is it on
That
sale?
sounded
'Cause I know
horrible.
Steam-
I don't know. I'll have to check.
Oh hey, I had a funny idea.
I don't think it's that
Have you
much. I think it's
guys
like 30
seen-
bucks. Honestly.
Have you guys seen the foot toast video that was going around? Where this lady
What
stepped
foot
on
toast?
bread
I
and then
just
she
couldn't
toasted
sit-
it.
Oh
Oh,
my
yeah, she
god,
stepped on
yes,
bread
the
and she
fucking
just
toe
put
jam.
descended.
Get that shit away from me. We don't know nothing about
I
that
have a-
gross shit.
No, I got a funny idea, like to make a parody, like make like a deer hoof print, like make a deer hoof print and bread.
What
and
do you mean,
toast
Imagine
it.
if I just put a fox
Twitch?
paw print on one.
Twitch deer staff.
Oh god, she's not that kind of deer.
Amayame hoof print toast.
I can't
think
believe that
somebody
bitch
would
literally
buy
sold her
it?
footprint of the
Does
toast.
Where is the
anybody want to
market for
buy my
everything?
hoof print toast?
I literally commented on that and I was like, yeah, no thanks. I don't want anyone's toe jam on my toast.
What about hoof jam?
Nah, I'll pass.
You don't have a hoof fetish?
No. I have a
No.
tentacle fetish. Put a tentacle on there. I might be interested. Be a tentacle print. Nama Daddy, where you at? We make billions. Get Nama Daddy out here. Get Nama Daddy on the line. We can make millions.
Oh my god, dude.
Get Leon
Like,
Kennedy
when I
on the line.
saw
His
that-
footprint will get everybody fucking going.
When I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, hoof print toast, man. I'll make so much money.
Footprint toast is
Into
crazy.
the house.
I mean, I think I can make a sticker of it. I have to draw it, the doodle. I'm making a doodle out of Pokemon, so yeah. I'm gonna try
Hey,
to
there's
do
a
the toast.
TV. The town authority has issued an emergency evacuation notice. Please evacuate to the nearest designated quarantine center.
Destinated. Just saying, if you go in a room and the creatures are in the house, make sure you lock the door behind you, or and they will get in and kill you.
Crap.
And whenever you hear that sound, that usually means they're nearby.
Wait, oh, that emergency noise?
Essentially, we need to find the attic of the house and find out there's a
Oh.
computer in it.
Oh. Oh man,
They're coming. I hear them clip clopping around. No, definitely not that. I think you can also hide under
Like
the bed, but I
that?
can't remember.
Yeah, this one
Can I hide in the
only have
bathtub?
juices.
Juices.
Damn, they
Good, I
need to
have to
clean
drink some
this
juices.
toilet. That's disgusting.
Sorry,
this is
I
definitely
ate
a
Taco
man's
Bell.
house. Freaking men, they
You got
don't know how
that
to clean the
doo
toilet.
parasite. Damn chocolate squirts we keeping me up at night.
Yikes,
I
these
fucking
mirrors,
love
like,
that
turn-
fucking stupid song so goddamn much. I hate it too, though.
I saw that video, that was funny. Oh, you have to lock
I
the
ate the
doors,
lettuce
too.
from Taco
I found
Bell.
the exit, by the way. Like
And
the
now I
one
got
that
that
takes us to
taco
the lobby.
smell. Yeah, it should tell you where the which houses they're in.
The thing, I'm trapped on the exit though, because the guy is just standing there on the door of the exit, so I'm trapping here for a while.
That sucks for you. Cat bugs.
Okay, so
Got
I
me
can
some
lock
royal
the
jelly.
door. I locked the door and he can't get me, right? Yay.
That poo
Yep.
poo parasite.
Fucking close, bitch! Takes you forever. Oh, my insanity is low.
There's a picture
Spiritual
of Jesus.
insanity.
Jesus!
Oh crap.
Jesus, Maria Jose.
Oh! My
do
brain
this
is
right there,
being eaten
careful.
away.
Where?
I don't have nothing.
It was behind that
Okay.
door over there.
I'm gonna die. die of
Let's give you a
insanity.
temporary speed and stamina boost. Give me that.
What am I looking for?
I'm in water, nothing here. Oh, I'm dead. I'm fucking dead. I'm fucking dead.
Damn.
I
My
heard that.
brain's about to go.
Yep.
I heard that you die.
He
There are
just
no drinks.
He's just jelly that he can't beat you, okay? Tell me to fuck
Oh no,
himself.
I'm dying. Oh no, I went
Oh, I see your little
insane.
fucking. Yeah, I see your little fucking blah, 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 crowbar, bitch. Crowbar. Fuck you. I love that I can do that again.
Well,
okay.
I'm gonna go back to 3D forever.
Asher died a total of death dollar times. Nice command, bro. You're dead, bro. He walked through the fucking door.
He's your fucking dead. I forgot to walk it back up.
Well,
Oh my god, that was
will.
so scary.
That poo parasite. Come on, game. Don't do this shit again.
Oh no, you
Bruh.
crashed again?
No, it's just
Okay.
taking forever to load.
You got that
Okay.
pee poo poo parasite.
Got the pee pee poo 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 pee share.
why I just got a notification that you mentioned me in a story and I cannot see it anymore.
On Instagram, maybe?
Yeah, on Thursday, actually.
I don't know.
I
It should
cannot
still
see
be
it
there
anymore.
unless the story's not there anymore, which makes no sense because I didn't delete it. Because Mal even fucking liked it.
Yeah.
Oh, I see you, bitch.
I mean, okay, I think I know why, because on Thursday, I was not at home.
Ah!
Because it was during my
Don't
trip.
touch me.
So probably that's why.
Don't touch me.
Touch me.
Touch me. Touch me
Oh,
harder.
bitch is here.
me
Bro, I just
harder.
entered this fucking house, please.
You
I just
fucking
got in
Mexican
here.
hairless looking ass motherfucker. Don't go up the stairs. I'm trying to go up the stairs, you dipshit. I fucking hate you. Fucking Mexican hairless over here.
Okay.
Oh god, it's my holy
Oh,
shit.
I'm totally fucked.
Oh
Yep.
no, you're not gonna get away.
Juke
You're
him, juke
stuck
him,
in
juke
the
him,
attic.
juke him! I didn't juke him! Well, that egg's empty.
It's all up to you, Vashu.
If you go look at the terminal in the back, it should show you which houses have the thingies. They're like dots on
What
the map.
terminal?
If you go all the way to the back of the map, just hug the wall. Like right behind that building, the fence. Go behind the fence and you'll see it on the other side.
I'm first trying to locate the tentacle monster. While I'm logging.
He's somewhere over there.
You want to
I don't
find
know.
the tentacle monster?
Crazy.
We'll
Why am I gonna do something crazy like that?
find you.
Boo boo parasite. Get this shit stuck in my fucking head, bro.
I see the kitten dancing.
I know, because all I can think about is the fucking cats and dancing while I do that fucking dumb song. I even came up with more lyrics for the song at one point, then I forgot them.
Hey,
I'm so mad about
what's
that.
that do?
Okay, you see,
Ooh.
it should show you where to look.
Not telling me anything.
Check the terminal in front of the fence on the other side, then. Like where the door is.
I have to go back to the beginning then?
No, just to the middle where the fence is. And go to the front of it.
You're gonna get tentacled. I just know it.
I'm just getting
yo.
killed by sanity, by the way. I am gonna die because of my insanity.
Yo. Hey, fine.
Man, this game's getting hard.
Just like me.
Oh,
I'm
there's
just
another
saying
one.
the same dumb shit. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay, both are on the beginning.
Meg?
Oh wait, I can't see my
Okay.
fucking
That's
chat now.
Meg.
Got rid of my chat, doc. The
Oh,
fuck?
both of them were. All of them were on the entrance, by the way.
Crazy.
I'm gonna
Oh,
die.
I'm gonna have to rejoin the fucking share chat, aren't I?
Oh, you're dead. You
Yeah.
just exploded.
Yeah, because of my sanity, just make me go.
There we go.
completely
I
back.
love going insane. Just makes you explode into pieces.
Yeah.
I remembered a funny. Tell us that funny. Tell us you're funny, Duck Funny.
Quack.
Tell me something funny,
Quack.
funny man. And the game,
Yeah,
I
tell me
think your
something
game
funny,
crashed or
funny
it's just
man.
loading. Okay, there
No,
you
it's.
go.
Can you stop freaking me out? Shut up. Fucking knock on wood,
Okay,
bitch.
all of them are at the entrance, and there is one right here next to us. I'll go to the bottom right. I'm going to go here.
There's
Top. I know where it is.
Bottom, like, literally on the left on the bottom. I'm going to this house. Should be.
There's one up here.
Monster is here. Careful.
Monster? Uh-oh.
Monsters Inc.
Which way you went, so, watch me run right into it. Wouldn't that just be my luck?
It's
No,
a
he just jumped into me.
monster.
I'm gonna die. I run out of stamina.
Oh,
Oh,
not
he
that
got
one.
stuck. He got stuck. Nice. He's stuck.
You know what else is stuck? My dick. My
Oh,
dick fell
Balls
off.
in your jaw.
oh.
My dick fell off.
Oh,
Oh, I'm
monster!
stuck.
Why am I stuck? Where can I move? Oh!
Wanna find out? Don't you wanna?
Yeah.
Fucking! The door closes too goddamn slow. Fucking hell! Took it 3 goddamn business days to close the fucking door.
I tried to get away. It like
We're locked.
caught me on the stairs.
Fuck off,
where
ugly.
you
I'm in
go?
the bathtub now.
You disappear, bro.
I'm in the bathtub.
Oh.
I want a Fanta, don't you
So
wanna?
look, it's crowbars going through the door.
I know.
Yeah.
See that? It's clipping.
Fucking hell! 3 business days closing that freaking ass door.
You open that door, you're gonna die.
Ah, he's gone.
You're gonna die.
He's gone.
Yeah.
Found the computer. Hee hee.
Oh, you found a computer? Oh god, is that gonna save us? Is that gonna win the level?
Yes.
Oh, thank god.
Actually, hold on.
Should you
I gotta
lock the
this
door?
Now
Yeah,
it is.
the crowbar's there. You better lock that door.
Bro, okay, my game is just freaking
I'ma
weird
lock
because
your
I'm
butt.
still in the freaking bathtub watching Slater for some reason.
Did you like the bathtub, I guess?
Bro, my cam is literally stuck in the freaking bathtub. Saying that I'm watching you.
Alright, 1 down. 3 to go. Oh, hi, ugly. Well, if you're
Yeah,
over
I
there,
told you.
I will
Yeah, but if he's
guess
over
I will
there,
stream your stream for now, I guess.
I can go this way.
Run.
Felicia. Fuck with the
So
front
is
door.
it like a different?
Fuck with the
a
front door.
different
There it
computer
is.
in each house?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the what I want to do.
So
Essentially,
how do
that's
you know
what it
which
is.
houses it's in?
You just gotta look at that little panel and it's the red dots are where the signal's coming from.
Boy, we haven't seen Big Tentacle Boy in a while.
What? Let's not jinx it. You wouldn't botch with the damn jinxing. Knock it off. You little shit. Oh, great. And now I'm running out of
You got
sanity.
how many computer? Oh, you're gonna die.
Oh
because of
no! Wait, on the bench.
See
Oh,
what,
wait.
see what you did? You see what you did? Just, see, I got that one. Oh, there's 2 more.
sanity. Yeah. They are were next to each other though.
Yeah, I'm aware. So if I'm here, then I gotta go down this block and to the right 2 houses. So the way this looks, I'm here. No, I'm dead. Okay, bye.
Bye bye.
Oh, well, we'll try again.
Well, it should have saved after the first one, so we just gotta get the other 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
There's
so we don't
Gucci.
have to do it all over again. That's good.
No, we just gotta get the other 2. It usually saves after you get progress on certain things.
Fortunately, because if not, it's gonna be a pain in the ass with so many
I
enemies.
mean,
at
if
the same
not, I'll just
time.
go back to the same house and do it again. Unless they switch houses, and then, yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
Let me see. No, same
Nope,
houses.
same houses. Okay,
Same
so...
So this is
So
Okay, but
there's
see, I
3
can't really
items,
tell because this
so-
fence is weird. So if this
Take
is the
stuff
fence,
on the bench for your
and the exit's
sanity.
back there, then that means we gotta go that way.
Yeah, we have to go
Down
back
the
that way. Okay,
road.
we'll go.
You
it
guys
should be that
take
house right
these
here.
for your sanity.
Yeah.
Take these for your sanity. So you don't die like that again.
On my way. On my way. I mean, my way.
Oh, I am sorry.
I mean, if I'm
I was
gonna
looking
die,
at
I'm
the
gonna die to
screen.
the freaking creatures anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Ugh. Oh, my way.
Beach is gonna try there.
Shit.
I wanna see if I can bait him or something.
Not the one! Fuck!
Nope.
Not that house.
I just saw you
Different
die.
house.
Why you you bitch?
He came downstairs and slapped this shit out you.
Ama, you motherfucker! You sold me!
No, that was good. Told you she's jinxing us.
Okay, now it's up to you.
You
luck.
jinx, you dirty jinxer.
I just knew it was coming. And I'm like, I'm gonna close the door, but then you couldn't get out, and I accidentally killed you.
Oh,
Oops.
yeah, I wonder why I could not get out.
Oh, that's what happened. That's even more hilarious.
Yeah, the thing is that I saw you die, and then Ama killed me.
That's
The
crazy.
thing is that she didn't read the map, so she does not know which houses they are.
Nope.
Hey, I'm gonna look at my
I
stream.
closed the door on him, and he couldn't get out. Oh.
I'm proud of you.
Okay, Ama, you remember the house where you killed me?
Yeah, I gotta
There.
go in that one.
Yep,
Oh damn.
that's the reason why I died. It's the house that we have to go.
I don't think
Crap.
that one has anything in it, does it?
No, that one was. That's why the enemy was there.
Oh well, don't go up to the attic because there's nothing up there. Trust me, I died trying to get it.
Yeah, she does not remember which house it was.
I know it was
Bro,
down
I don't
here
even remember which
somewhere.
house it was.
I
The one
went
on
a
the
little
left.
far.
I used to have to go by shape. I forgot which one's right.
Ama,
Because the map is
okay,
weird.
the
Like,
monster's
the
right.
locked gate is like
This one?
sideways, so you're looking at it from a different angle. That's weird.
Oh,
the big
shit,
house
oh,
that is
shit.
right next to you, right?
Oh,
the big one
shit.
on the left. The big one on the left.
On the
AKA, go
left, the
straight.
one on the
Yeah.
left.
Right, right, right.
Right.
That one. That is him. Left.
This
That's not
one.
right.
That one.
That's
That,
left.
that one. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
That one is where you killed me.
I hear the big monster. Oh crap! Oh crap! Oh.
Well, if you hear the big monster, you might want to get out of the road.
Yeah.
Because he will
no,
come for
but I'm-
you. Get on the
There's literally a
patio. He
porch
can't
right
attack
next
you on
to
the
you, by the way.
patio.
Okay, I gotta get in the house. Get in the house. Open the door.
Not there.
Fuck.
Nope, it's
Door
not that
won't
house.
open. Shit. I'm gonna die.
That's
gonna get me.
wrong house.
That's what
No,
happened
which
when you kill
house?
your partners.
I mean, I died
Oh,
with my own
shit.
choices.
Oh yeah, I know.
Well. Which house? Which house?
You
it
asked the
this
wrong
one?
guy. Whichever one
Fuck.
opens.
Oh god.
If you use the
Oh,
lantern,
man.
you can actually see which house can be opened.
Died
because
of
if the door
natural
is wide,
causes.
it can be opened.
Bet.
Oh.
Make sure
that
you
goes
lock the
right
door
back
behind you.
outside. Oh yeah. Well. I'll do that. Hang on. I'm
Oh,
gonna
you found a
dive
computer. Lock the
insanity
door.
Anyway. Oh. Okay, I locked it. Computer.
right there.
Computer. Okay.
You just have to sit at the computer and it'll automatically finish.
Well, hopefully I don't die of insanity before it does.
Thanks, fine.
I did for the first time in this whole game. Yay!
What are you talking about? You have to listen to other games. Or the other map.
Ooh, ooh! I need that. I need that. Drink, don't die, drink.
Nope, she died first. Okay, so there should be one left. Hopefully.
Two left actually.
No, because we got the third one.
It
That's
was
the third
too
one. I
late.
thought.
I think
I
there
saw
was only
two.
three. I'm pretty sure there's only 3 left. There was only 3, and I did one. And
No,
Alma
there are
did one,
4.
so-
Here are 2 left.
Motherfucker. So which one did I find earlier?
I told you.
Shut up. Alright,
Bitches.
so go that way. Down the block. To the right.
Okay, where am I?
Should be the second
Like, where are
house.
we on this thing? Okay.
I don't know. The fucking map's weird. Oh, here comes the eyeball.
I
Okay, if I go,
don't
where
get
are
it.
you? Okay, we have to go here and go left again.
I promise I won't kill you this time.
That's
Let's
not
That's what
very.
they all say.
That's not very. As the. What do you call it?
Let's be friends.
Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? I'm gonna die.
Did you take the items on the bench so you don't go insane? You should do that.
No, too busy trying to not die. I got go juice. I'll be alright.
Computer. Okay.
Because that's normal.
I hear. Oh god, how much you want to bet the freaking monster's right behind this damn door? Oh man. Are you in here? Are you
I
in here?
found one of them, but the dude is just camping me.
Okay.
Good. It scared me.
Oh, he was waiting me on the door.
Oh, I heard that. That sounded horrible.
Clobbered.
Oh, you were on the. I think Amma is on the right in the building where I died. The dude is on the down floor. Get it. Go for it. Go for it. He's following you. Get into that.
Go.
building.
Close the door. Lock it.
I'm trying.
Do it faster. He's coming.
Why is my flashlight ain't working no more?
Okay.
But the fuck.
What's the fuck is going? Why he's just looking at you?
Oh my god!
Lock the damn thing.
Lock the goddamn door and take the PC. What the fuck is going on?
What are you doing?
He just look at you and just say, "Yeah, I'm leaving."
Who cares? She got it. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, she got it. I don't fucking care. As long as she got it, it's okay.
Oh my god. This
How the fuck am I clutching
I
out
hate
of
this section.
nowhere?
I don't know. Apparently the monsters don't like her.
Yeah.
I don't know if I should
Yeah,
be
that's right.
happy or
She's
insulted.
like, I don't want to touch you with a stick.
You mean a crowbar?
It's technically just a metal stick.
It's a crowbar.
Yeah. By the way, I'm on the entrance if you need more juices or stuff like that.
She just rids it
well.
with her mind.
So my body's...
She fucking rids the fucking monster. The book.
I don't
Are you
know
out
if
here
I'm gonna be
ridding
able to get out of
monsters?
here.
You know what? If you don't, it's
think I'm
fine.
gonna-
We still only have one house left to go then.
Yeah, it's on the left. And we can just bait him on the last room.
It's gonna kill me.
Yep, probably.
Run for your life.
Oh, there he is.
Go down and left. Go down and exit. Go down the exit. No, behind you. You just go on those stairs and you'll exit that
You
place.
have the worst
Oh.
directions, just so you know.
Oh.
I know.
Oh.
The thing is that... No, okay.
Down behind you. Like, what did that even mean?
Okay, down and behind you. You go down and they'll go behind.
I think she saw the stairs, but kind of
Yeah.
hard to go down when there's a monster right there.
Yeah, surprisingly, she
that's
saw the stairs
why.
and went to the opposite way.
I couldn't get to the stairs because the monster was there.
Okay, there's here...
Ignore him. He's a know-it-all.
I'm gonna take that candy bar.
Connection
Mexicango.
interrupted. Fuck you, bitch. I'll fuck your mom.
Mexicango.
All right.
All right, one
So
more.
we're here.
It should be on this... It should be on this house,
Third house
actually.
down. So 1, 2, 3 over here.
I'm following you guys.
Probably not the greatest
The
idea in the
monster
world, but go
doesn't
for
like
it.
me
Should be
that
this
much.
house.
Garage.
Oh,
You did not just walk right into the monster, did you?
no! I got away from it. Oh god.
Well,
I think
found
you
him.
found someone.
Yeah, me. Right behind you, by the
Oh
way.
yeah, I found your body. Your body somehow managed to get into the attic. Oh, you brought it.
You might want to close the door
Bye.
behind you because he's coming.
There is no... Oh yeah, I'm gonna close it. Goodbye.
Oh, is he in here with me? He's not
Probably.
in with me.
It's gonna be
he's
there
not.
soon.
Oh god. Let me out!
You're opening and
gonna
closing the
die.
door, by the way.
Oh, like it, lock it. There we go. We're safe.
For now.
Safe.
Safe from what? Yourself?
By the way, here's one of your arms, Slayer.
Yeah, I can't
Oh,
see through your
God.
fat ass.
Slayer, why are you dead?
Because I got moited.
He got moisted.
Because moida.
Moida.
Because Hot Fox makes middle fingers.
Can I be slave in that game? Is the game worth playing?
Monster
What do you mean
and
about being a
bedrooms and mouth
slave in
asking
the
you
game?
from her often. What?
That's a weird thing. We want to be a slave? I mean, it's worth playing, but why do you want to be a slave? What do you
Wait,
mean?
what are we talking about? I'm confused.
What are we
Somebody
talking
in my
about?
YouTube chat.
What? Your
Somebody in my
YouTube chat
YouTube-
is weird.
Yeah,
Where? What is
I
up in
don't
your
know
YouTube
who
chat,
these
fam?
people are.
What did they
Okay,
say? Hold
okay.
on. What's up with your YouTube chat? I'm confused.
My YouTube chat is a little odd. Oh, I found the
Yes,
computer.
Okay,
Please
Okay.
activate it.
the guy is with me. The
ASAP.
guy is with me, so take advantage of it.
I'm using it. I'm using it. Beep, bop, boop.
He's still with me. He's on the door, so he's just focusing on me.
Beep, beep, boop,
Yeah, he's just saying here.
beep, beep, boop.
Oh, he left. He left. He left.
Well, she
Okay,
should be
I
in the
did
room
it.
with the door, so she should be fine.
Oh, okay, he's with me. He's still with me. Okay. Exit the house. Exit the
Okay.
house.
All right,
exit the
YouTube
house.
chat.
Take
I'm
advantage.
subjecting you to torture. What the hell
Oh
are
my
you people
God.
talking about?
All right. Oh crap! I'm about to go insane. How do I get the fuck out of this house? Oh, where's the front door? Oh,
On the
it's
door.
gonna
Just
get me.
take the
It's gonna
door.
get me. It's gonna get me. It's gonna get me. It's gonna get me. I can't get away. I can't get away. I'm screwed. Bye. It was nice to know you. That thing looks like it could just about run Minesweeper. Oh, it got me. It's all up to you now. That's right. Get drunk and go find that last computer.
No, that was the last computer.
It was? Oh, the gate's open. Thank God. Get out of here, boy. Get us out of here. Are there
Oh.
any more monsters?
I don't see anything about fucking slavery.
Okay, let's go.
It's because it's on my YouTube chat.
I'm looking at
On
your
my,
YouTube chat.
Huh. Maybe, or maybe it was one of your chats. I don't know.
No.
Probably
it's
no, my
not on
fucking
my
look.
chat.
I can't even see my Twitch chat, so on my fucking OBS.
Yeah, and the thing is that Slayer's not in the shirt chat anymore though.
I rejoined
Let
it
me,
earlier.
Let me check. Let me check my YouTube chat, see if that's what it is.
My reshoots.
it's not, because I
No,
haven't
it just says
seen
NB.
Okay, nope, it's
whoever
not.
NB is.
No, it's not my. It ain't my chat, so it's one of your chats where somebody wants to be a slave.
Okay.
It ain't my chat.
Unless you're talking about something that fucking Volt said.
It was somebody --2927. It was coming from YouTube.
There's nothing
Says,
about
"Can I
it
be
in
a
chat
slave in that
here.
game? Is that game worth playing?" So, are you both dual streaming to YouTube? Because it wasn't on my.
I'm dual streaming to
I'm
YouTube,
not.
but I don't even know what my YouTube chat's saying right now because I don't for something reason my fucking restream got destroyed.
Ooh, what do we do here?
Okay.
Like my restream
That
chat
thing
is
has
no
an
longer
administration
even showing
card
up on my thing. It's weird.
that can get us anywhere. Hide here. Okay, we need to hide on the freaking lockers and kill that bitch.
Apparently, I gotta reset all my docs. Hold on.
Oh. Okay.
Oh yeah, so we gotta get one of the monsters to chase us, and we gotta trap it and then turn it into a human again.
Oh.
But we gotta get the
Entity
vials
stands
while we're
here.
getting chased by it, and we got lockers we can hide in.
Ah. Is this the end of the game?
No, we're getting there
Oh.
though.
Ooh. Huh.
E.
Gonna get ready for bed. Night, Babone. Sleep well. So we gotta drag a monster in here and trap
In
it.
here, yeah, with the vials and shit.
Okay. I don't like that. Oh,
Me
I don't
either.
like this at all. This is very scary, spooky.
You gonna get used to it. That's what you gonna do.
I found him. I found
Oh.
him. I found him.
There's some pee-pee poo-poo right there.
Pee-pee poo pee shire.
Oh, look at a dead body. Oh,
Yay.
whoa, 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 oh!
He found me. Obviously, Slayer is safe because he's still on the beginning.
I'm fixing my stream shit. Give me a fucking minute.
That's the only thing keeping you alive.
Damn right.
Not for long because he's down. The door is still open though.
He can't come in here, so
I
I'm
gotta
Gucci.
go pee. I'll be right back.
All right, go pee.
He can come in. He's supposed to go there anyways.
Beep, 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 beep.
Cockapoo Baby Shire. I cannot fucking get my Twitch chat show. Whatever. I give up. All right, I'm going in. Go pee.
He was right there from you. The vials are on the right and then left. Okay.
You
Ignore
said
that.
right, then left. You didn't say right, then right. Motherfucker.
No, you went left and then right. You
You know
literally
what?
went on the
My
opposite
middle finger
direction
in
I
the
told
air
you.
is perfect right now for this moment. Fuck you. Don't give me directions. You're horrible at it.
Bro, I told you to go right and then left. You went left and then right. You literally did
Dyslexic
the opposite.
dipshit.
You
I don't know my
you're
right from my
dyslexic,
left.
You're retarded too. Don't say I'm up at fault and say directions if you do the opposite of what I
No,
told you
it's
to
your
go.
fault. You suck. Shut up.
It's your fault. I have one of the the almonds thing is.
He's chasing you. Get in the locker.
I'm aware.
Okay, well, since he's chasing you, I'm leaving. Bye.
I have the bottle. I'm putting the bottle here.
Yeah, you put in a bottle where now?
The bottle is on the beginning. He scared the shit out of me. I didn't know he can run. He
Shit!
moved way fast.
Ah, fuck you.
He moves faster than the other guys. That's
I
why
move
he
faster
scared
than the
shit out
speed
of
of
me.
gay.
He just runs. Why your shadow is still there?
Don't worry about it.
Did you fight the void or something?
Don't worry about it. Oh, shit, don't do that! You scared the shit out of me, fucker! Give me that crowbar. Come here. Come here.
Hey. Shit.
He went that way though.
Shit. I'm aware.
Oh.
Very much aware, I see.
Bye. We stand right here, right? Let it come over
No,
here.
but we need to feel the almond concentrate. We cannot. You cannot drag him there yet. You need
Hey,
more almond stuff. Or
Wait.
don't listen to me then.
What?
Uh-oh. Okay, I'm going back in my locker. Goodbye.
Yep.
I thought I could lure him. Oh no.
Well,
He's right there. By
I'm
the
aware.
red window.
I'm aware. So I'm going here.
Oh my god.
That's why I'm going the other way.
Do you find stuff in those lockers there, maybe? Can
no,
you
the
go
lockers
into
is
the
where you
bed?
hide.
Yeah, lockers is where you
Oh.
hide out.
Yeah.
This is a shortcut.
We were saying that for a while though.
Ah, I was peeing, so
Oh, okay,
I got
makes
an
sense.
excuse.
So you went in American, you came out American. What were you in the bathroom? European.
European. That's a good one. I like puns.
Good fun.
I like big
Oh.
puns and I cannot lie.
Oh.
Oh, he mad. He mad.
He angry.
Ooh, look at him.
Yeah, your
He
ugly
had
ass
no
key card
pee-pee.
wearing ass self.
He had no pee pee.
No pee pee. No pee pee.
Why he's walking like that? Like he's from the
You
hood.
know those kids and
I know
die.
that guy is black.
You got the swagger of a
I have no
cripple. You got Betty
proofs.
White swag.
I have no proofs, but I'm 100% sure this guy is black. By the way he walks.
He's a pimp named
If he had
Crowbar.
the pants that fall
Pimp
down
named
below his
Crowbar, I
waist.
love that one.
Oh, never mind. I want to mess with a pimp named Crowbar right now.
A crip named Crowbar.
Crip.
A crip
No,
named
we're destroying the
Crowbar.
wars over and over.
Wait, what the fuck? I had the
You have to put it on your inventory first.
oh, motherfucker. It isn't my. You dumb bitch.
Okay, you need one more.
Pimp named
Don't
Crowbar.
die. Don't
That fucking laugh.
There's where I got one of them. Probably. He's on the other side. Yeah.
There's nowhere to hide in here.
Pimp named Crowbar.
You're gonna find him on the left, probably.
Where's the Betty White swag at? Swagger cripple.
Get in the locker.
Get into the locker.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
I'm good.
There.
I'm hiding.
Hi.
He can't get me here.
What
That's
the hell
crazy.
is that?
Crazy.
Watch
Oh,
out
that's
for
crazy.
farts.
Now you gotta get back to the main room without dying. I believe in you! Oh my god.
See, now you just went and jinxed me.
Remember to keep it on your inventory, though.
It's already on my main hand.
Now he can come
Done.
in there. You gotta
Yep,
stand
now I just
on
gotta
the
trap
You have
him.
to lure him.
Okay.
No.
You have to masturbate him.
That's insane.
Yep.
Where are you, buddy? Where are you, friend? Hi, friend. Oh, shit.
There he is.
He moves fast as fuck, boy.
Bring it, Betty White.
Come on,
There
There you
Betty.
go.
Get fucked.
Yay. Now what do? Oh,
This.
you roll that thing over. Gotta
Yeah,
turn him
and
human
then-
Someone pay
again.
attention to the TV.
Ta-da. Give him a good old almond bath.
Is he gonna be naked?
No. That would be weird.
His clothes just magically. I love how his clothes magically reappear. Hey,
Thank
what are
you.
you doing to him?
Horrible things. Horrible
Look
things.
Looks sus. Looks sus.
Oh, wait, we gotta go back.
No loop on this bitch. Just go raw.
Loop it. Oh, let me
What
stick
are
it in
you
there.
doing?
We're looping it up.
Going
What do you
raw.
mean?
Jeez. Oh, now where do you go?
Are you sure you need
What
to?
is
Oh
this?
yeah, we need to go.
Yeah,
back
we
then
had to go back and
the-
open the gate.
on the bridge. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
We're almost done,
Open the
actually.
gate.
We have like 2 more levels, I think.
Oh yeah.
Really?
And it's
Oh.
only 4 a.m.
If I'm not mistaken, yeah, it's 2 more
Whoa,
levels.
4 a.m. where you are?
Yeah, I'm in Spain now. It's 4 a.m. I had to take like 2 naps to getting here.
Oh, wow. You're dedicated.
I
Alright,
mean,
what are we
I'm
looking
unemployed
for?
right now, so I don't have anything better to do.
The unemployed.
Blessed be the unemployed.
Yeah.
The unemployed are calling me.
There is like the almond shit.
I can't see anything.
The back door.
Oh,
Ayo.
monster is on this side.
So what am I doing?
Being too employed for this.
Like,
We gotta go to the
Guidance?
gate in
What
the
am
back. You see where the metal fences
out-
you were just at? You go all the way around it
Yeah.
and go to the back.
oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so that, and then
And then we open the gate.
back.
Boop, done, open.
Okay.
Just follow the fence to the end and then run straight down the road.
I'm trying, but I'm exhausted.
Yeah, we're already at the
Fuck,
gate,
it's like
just waiting for
boots
you.
Where's the opening?
I'm surprised that someone has a worse sense of orientation than I do.
I have the worst of all. No
Yeah, I
sense
thought
of
mine was
direction
bad.
I
ever.
don't know. You never seen me in a mall.
Alright, I'm in front of Meg, okay?
Okay, go all the way around the fence on the outside.
On the outside, that would have
Yeah,
helped.
not on the inside, the outside of the fence.
Oh, that would have
She was
helped
go-
to know
she was
that.
still inside the
Oh my
Yeah.
lord! I said outside
Oh.
the fence, fool.
Yeah.
I didn't hear you say that. I heard you say go around the fence, but you didn't say
Well,
inside or outside.
the implication would be outside of the fence on the other
I
side.
don't know. I thought there was another opening in the fence somewhere.
Remember when we talked about common sense? Yeah.
Yep.
I don't have that. I don't have that.
Clearly.
Hello, little bit. Another YouTube chatter.
It's crazy.
Whoa, this place is so creepy.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get
No,
chased
it's
by
very
hillbillies.
crappy.
Oh no. I
That
don't
was
like
very
hillbillies.
crappy of you. Alright, so we're gonna go to the end of the road here, and then we're gonna go to these
Okay.
windmills, and we have to light each one that's red and turn them on, and then get through the maze that is the corn. While being chased
Oh,
by
corn maze.
chainsaw murderers.
What? No, I don't like that.
Yep.
I don't like chainsaw murderers and haunted corn mazes.
Well,
I like the Halloween haunted corn
there's
mazes.
one level away from winning the game, so.
Oh.
At least I think. I'm not sure they added any more levels after this one. At the arcade, I mean.
Oh, she died.
Oh, sure, but he got killed by the chainsaw man.
I don't see anything there, but I will not take
You
chances.
guys keep running. Keep running and don't
Oh,
Oh, I
stop.
saw him. I saw him. He's there. He's there. He's there.
Yeah, he's coming for that booty, bro. Usually they don't do that unless you're out of the corn, in the corn, but
He
okay.
just ran into the cornfield, so he might pop out anywhere.
Yeah, he is. He was inside the street. I saw him on the street.
Yeah, it's a little wild. I didn't
Oh
expect
my
that
god.
one.
That was scary. That was really scary.
Turn the light mill, the lights will point towards the way out. Oh, he gonna pop out. You ain't gonna like it.
Thank you for the subscription, lol bit from Five Nights at Freddy KO.
Okay.
A little bit.
That's an interesting name.
Alright, I'm
I'll
going.
just call you lol bit. Lol bit's
Apparently there's
easier.
carrots on the ground. I don't think you can pick them up though.
Where you going? So.
I'm going straight towards the lighthouse, or the windmill.
I don't even get to
Yeah.
see the
Where the
level.
windmill
It
is, I
won't-
cannot see
it
where the
won't let me
windmills are.
Just go
spectate.
straight to the corn, or the,
Okay.
It won't
wheat.
let me spectate. Nah. No. I'm stuck here being dead.
Okay. You see what the green one is? That's the one you need to go to. The next one we need to
Okay,
go
we're
to is the
there.
red one.
There's some nice cabins.
Oh,
on the
chainsaw,
ground.
chainsaw.
I don't see the red ones, by the way. I don't see the green one.
I don't know how the hell you don't see any
I
of
see the
them.
red
That's
one.
weird.
Oh, he found me. He found me. He found me. He found me. He found
You
me.
can
he found
loop
me.
them. Oh, never mind. I'm dead.
I only see. Okay, I don't know where to go because I only see the fence.
You just gotta run straight for the lights house and try to make it there. That's all.
Okay, he found me.
I told you the
I
chainsaw
think he just tried
massacre.
to run somewhere. I see the chainsaw man and that freaking fence. I tried to loop him around and I only found him again.
I'm gonna be alive.
Chainsaw
Okay.
massacre.
Ooh, a drink. Peek up.
All right,
Peek up.
let's do this.
Hi.
Okay, so the green one's already lit. You just go straight towards it.
Okay.
Once you reach the green one, you're gonna have to run through the corn to get to the hay or wheat or whatever the hell this long ass grass is to get to the next one.
Corn.
But
Okay.
be careful, because
Peace
they're
out,
hiding
brother.
in the grass waiting to kill you. So if you hear them
Well.
running, coming, run.
Much
He's
I
coming.
love it.
He's on my booty.
Ah,
Run.
let's test something.
They're lucky kind
Where
of
do I go?
slow. Just kind of
Which
like
way do I
follow.
go?
No, you have to
Well,
run. It is,
just-
that's enough.
Yeah, walk through the grass until
that
you
one's
reach a
already
fence
on,
and
by
then
the
follow
way.
the fence to the end.
Okay. I'm with Vashu. Keep me
Alright.
alive.
I'm still running around trying to find a way out. He's
Good luck
coming
with
for
that.
me.
Coming.
I have low stamina.
Good luck with it.
I'm near the next one.
Oh shit, he's close.
I'm just following Vashu. One of us will die.
Oh,
I
there's
don't know
Riri.
who.
Oh, beach is in here. Beach is in here. Beach is in here.
Ooh, okay, I'm dead.
Oh, there
He
are two
got
in here.
me. He got
I'm
me.
gonna die because there are two in here where I am.
Alright, activating the next
Oh,
one.
there.
I'm moving on to the
He
third
was
one.
just waiting at the entrance. There are two in here.
Fun.
It's all
Oh, I'm
up to
stuck.
you,
I got
Slayer.
stuck in the. How the fuck I got stuck in there? I just crossed right there. Okay.
I like how my chair wiggles. Look at my chair. Wee.
Wee, stamina boost.
Wiggle, wiggle,
It
wiggle
usually
chair,
is.
Wiggle chair.
Shit, where the hell do I go? Green one's there.
Run, 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 run.
If you keep going straight, that there is another red light though.
Yeah, I know, but I've already reached the green light here. I need to reach that one.
Hmm.
Trust me, running straight makes sense, but it doesn't at the same time because there will always be a
Yeah.
fence that blocks you. See?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then you have to run around and find an opening in the fence to get to the next area.
And they're gonna find you.
There is.
Let's hope they don't.
Get it.
Got it.
Yay.
No, I'm stuck. Fuck.
Oh, there's some items. Yay.
Eat that
All the
shit.
things.
Drink that.
They're gonna
Start
find
running.
you. They're gonna.
Did you stop jinxing me, woman? I swear to God.
I'm
There's one on the
coming
right.
for you, Barbara.
Why are you coming on Barbara?
Barbara.
Barbara didn't do nothing wrong.
Where are you, Barbara?
There was the entrance was on the left. Go back to the lake.
Hang on.
You go back to the lake. There is literally one straight path to the red light,
Hang on. I'm looking for something.
and you disappear on my screen again.
Yeah, that's life.
I'm stuck in the corn. We are the children of the corn.
Okay, literally on my screen again got
Could be
stuck.
worse. Could be children of the porn.
No. We're getting banned.
Nah.
Yeah, we cannot spectate you anymore.
That's fine. I found the next one anyway.
What?
Exits nearby. We're close.
Alright, it's all up to you. Save us from the serial killers.
The serial
What a joke.
tillers? Is that what you just said? That's crazy.
Serial
Serial
killers.
That's what it sounded like.
That would make
Oh,
sense.
fuck, it's not
because
that
we're on
way, it's this
farmland.
way.
Serial tillers would make sense. for the
Serial
farm.
tillers. Oh, they're coming to serial kill me. I'm dead. I don't know how I escaped that, but okay.
We either. We can see you.
You can do it. I believe in you. Sort of.
Damn, that's crazy. Yeah, that's pretty black too. Oh, I'm almost
I got
there. Come on.
Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid? Not Kool-Aid,
I
but
never
Kool-Aid.
taste Kool-Aid in my life.
Yo, Kool-Aid is
Let me just tell you
good.
something. If you're not getting diabetes from one sip, you're not doing it right.
Okay.
That's how Kool-Aid's supposed to taste. If you're literally not getting diabetes from the first sip, you didn't make it right.
Well, this is in the pouch. It's called Kool-Aid Zomberry. And the Kool-Aid man has brains in him.
It's funny. Look, guys, I found the arcade.
Got it at BJ's. We got like 4 boxes of it. It's so good.
The
I like
arcade.
my zombie Kool-Aid.
Ratata.
Woo, you did it!
I sure did. I'm boss.
You're the best.
I'm that bitch.
Oh, wow, a nightclub. Look, a nightclub. Or movie theater?
It's an arcade.
It's an arcade. we said the word arcade
said
5
I said
times.
arcade like 5 times, bro. What's going on with you?
I didn't say an arcade. There's no video game things.
Yes, there
Here
is
it
right
is.
here.
Look,
Oh.
Open the door here.
Open the
Oh,
door.
okay.
That's just the lobby.
Open the door, you silly
Whoa,
goose.
whoa, what is that? The
That's
floor,
liquid cool.
okay.
That's called my coom.
Okay, here's the exit. Okay.
You
The
guys
goon.
are terrible.
That's Fox coom.
You coom. You
Well,
coom.
maybe
If
there is more
someone
levels
jerks
to it.
off
I don't
too
know.
much and then just pass out, he's comatose.
Comatosing.
Comatose.
I'm absolutely comatose,
Oh, what
guys.
kind of horrors are in the arcade?
I don't know. I feel like we're missing a couple levels though.
Wait, like on... We're missing levels? What do you mean by that?
You'll see. The code should be around here somewhere.
Oh, it's an elevator. Okay.
Tickets.
Muff. Muff. Gotta look.
Oh, there's a TV in here.
Somewhere
I
around
like the
here.
carpet. So we gotta find the code to use the elevator.
931.
Insert coin.
Where'd you see 931?
On the tickets.
Oh, try it. Is there a 9th floor? Oh, I think it worked. Get in here.
Come here. The tickets work.
Yep, it worked. 931.
Oh yeah.
Hello,
Yay.
and welcome to the MEG civilization. Our goal
Press
with
the
this
elevator button
project
again to
is
skip the
create a
video, not
safe and
recommended.
habitable living space for everyone. With private
safe and
one-bedroom
habitable.
studios and advanced safety devices, you are sure to stay safe within the walls of this civilization.
Yeah,
However,
right.
due to the nature of our environment, there are a few safety tips you should
Turn on the
always
fucking
follow
flashlight,
to
I
prevent
cannot see the
unwanted
TV.
dangers. The first
Shut
tip
your ass up.
is to always stay
Give my
aware
show.
of no clipping, which is
Now
when
switch
someone
the
may
channels to
fall through
Power
a floor
Rangers.
into a different, often
Be
more
aware of no
dangerous
clipping.
level.
You just
Oh.
fall to the floor.
We've taken the time to mark
Oh,
these
no.
areas with yellow tape. Sometimes authorized personnel may need to no-clip to other levels in order to fix
Oh,
power
wow.
outages. When doing so,
That
be
sounds
sure to always carry
dubious.
a flashlight and pay attention to the
It's dubious
traffic
at
lights
best.
posted near each area. The red and yellow lights indicate that there's danger nearby and you should wait before entering. The green light indicates that there's currently no danger nearby, but you should always be alert as you will be outside of our civilization.
I'm
If
gonna
you're
die.
interested in pre-ordering a space
Baby.
in the MEG civilization,
Yep.
please contact
Guaranteed.
your nearest outpost.
That's what happens.
Escape level 3,999. That's a lot of
Okay.
What
levels.
the hell?
We just speedrun this shit. We went to 9 to 3999.
Wait a minute. This looks familiar.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Ba-da-ba-la-la-bam-bam.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
Te necesita una poca de gracia.
Hey, you know the words.
Okay,
Yeah, I
so it
speak
looks
Spanish. I
like
know the words, of course.
Majors Explorer Group General Plan of Renovation level 0.2. You are here. So there's a red dot in the room about over there.
Right,
There's
left, right,
another
okay.
one.
Arrow.
You go down the hall up and to the left. There's another
Oh,
one.
shit.
Porta potty. Are you dead?
He got
There's a
eaten by
monster
a
right there.
big fucking creature in the tunnel. I forgot to mention that part.
Can I hide in the porta potty? I guess I can't.
I
the
would
door
really
won't
appreciate
close.
the next time to warn us before.
I didn't know that was gonna happen, but okay.
Okay.
Whoa, look
Okay.
at that!
It's
a
valid
big
then.
frog. It's a big frog with one eye.
Yeah,
One
that's
Its
eye
eyes are
Willy.
in its mouth, actually. You'll see it when you go in.
One eye Willy.
Oh, it's a reference to Beetlejuice?
When I wonder,
Oh,
Willie.
yeah, it's a
Bye.
reference to Beetlejuice.
I wanted to say hi.
I love how he is not animated at all. He just opens his
No,
mouth.
he just
and
opens his
that's
mouth,
it.
picks you up, and throws you in it.
That was
And
funny.
he just Jamiro Kai's out of there.
Okay, so we can't go that
Moment.
way, so we gotta go this way. Also, switches.
That's in my head.
Doors are locked from below. So how the fuck do I get in there?
Okay. Can we jump in here?
I tried, it wouldn't let me.
Jump.
Don't
Hola,
Wait.
like the
señor,
light.
¿cómo
Oh, get the
estás?
flashlights. We need the flashlights on this one. There are gonna be smileys that we need to flash them.
You need flashlights? Okay.
Not flashlights, Jesus.
Did I say I was a say-so VTuber?
I never said you were.
Oh, green light. That's good. That makes me feel safe.
Oh,
Oh shit.
There are skin
Red.
skin takers.
Oh no. Oh no.
Well, that's great to know.
Oh no.
If you fall on the places you need to go,
It's red
there's
light.
skin
Okay,
takers
green light.
behind you, Slayer. Behind you.
I don't
Alpha.
want to go down there. I don't want to go.
You have to go.
I forgot about this
Okay.
place. Watch out for the feet. Shit.
You tricked me. You set me up.
No, you
set
actually
me
did have to go down there.
Yeah, you
It's just
actually-
dangerous.
That's something you had to do. You just got unlucky. He was right there.
God, dude, that sucked. Who do that? Who do that?
Yo, mama.
Door's locked.
Your mama.
Joe Mama.
Joe mama. That's like what Tenma says, right?
Joe Mama.
Joe mama. Okay, let's go. Let's go.
Oh, and I fell back to the
Freaking A.
floor. Okay, now I'm in the green room.
Oh, I saw. one of
Oh,
those
yeah, don't
face
go in the
screens.
rooms unless the light is green. That's why.
What do you mean?
Don't go in the room unless the light is green.
Okay.
Ooh,
Because if it's
what's
red, you'll
that?
get attacked by stuff. Like the smileys.
Okay.
The hell did I wind up back here? I was in the red room, then I fell through the floor, and now I'm back in the room where we started. Dang, that's trippy.
Yeah, you'll just fall. You'll just clip into different rooms. You had to find the switches.
I
Yeah,
wonder
but I clipped-
when it was green and I. Okay.
I think you have to
Okay.
find the switches when it's green. I can't remember.
It does not work when it's green. I walk when it was red. And then we go.
Oh, maybe it's gotta be red to go in, green when you're not. I don't know.
I got killed by a smiler.
Yeah, I saw that. Uber.
I am dead. There's the smiler. He's right behind you. See him? There's a lot of them.
What the? Really? Ain't no way that worked.
I guess you didn't flash him enough.
Oh, look, you
Ooh,
found
there's
one.
Toilets. Toilets in the
Oh, yeah,
ceiling.
but
Turn
I
it on.
don't know what we're doing here.
Did you turn it on?
Da, 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 da.
Oh, yeah,
Flash
you have to
'em.
open the doors in the other world in order to get the doors
Flash.
open on the top world. That's
Flash.
what it is.
Flash. Oh my god.
Or the other room.
Oh god. Oh god.
There's another smiley.
Yikes.
So whatever doors you open in
There
the
were a
bottom
lot of
area,
smileys.
it opens them up top.
Pick it up. Boop. Yeah.
Flash.
Let's flash. Yeah.
Not the Flash
Let's-
Gordon song. California,
Shut up.
California.
you're a freaking
No
old bitch.
California.
Never.
It's red light. Bad time to go down there.
No, it doesn't make.
LA.
Doesn't matter at all.
Alright, go back. Now we can go check that door.
It was disguised
fucking-
as Slayer. It was disguised as Slayer. That was
There we
not fair. That was so damn not fair.
It happens.
Yep.
Aw.
Okay, so find a
told you there
room
were
with a
skin
door,
takers.
and then find
Nobody
the
listened to me.
coinciding nearest portal that you can go through to open it, basically.
Okay.
You know what
I
else
am in
isn't
my
fair?
natural-
Life.
I am in my natural state, the state of dead.
Tell me when it's open.
Go away, you fucking
There you go.
smiley bitch.
It's open the toilet area. Okay, green now. Got it.
Okay, toilet area's open. That's a pretty nice state to be in, I think.
Oh shit,
That's
oh
not
shit,
you,
oh
is
shit,
it?
run.
Yeah, I figured. Nope, bye,
Woo,
bitch.
that was so close. That was so close.
Fucking the
Oh my
motherfucker's running at
God.
me thinking disguised as Vosh. Hell no.
Oh shit.
That's already done.
That's not Bosch.
That's Vosh.
On the outside, it's me. On the inside, no.
Oh, a lot of toilets.
Okay, we need to find 2 more, I think.
Yeah.
There's a door here.
I need to
So
find
where's
a
the
way to
nearest
get there
portal that I
somewhere.
can take?
I hear doggy.
Yeah, Dexter's being a squat. What else is in there?
It's a perro. I can't roll my R's. Perro.
Perro.
I can't roll my R's
Ow.
either, and I'm Hispanic. Don't worry about it.
Oh,
Fuck, I'm dead.
Wait, dude. Oh, chainsaw and everything.
He got me.
oh, he
go.
he's, oh.
Couldn't get the door closed quick enough. I think I don't know, there should be one more door, I think.
Oh, so your door is open. So probably the last one I'm missing is already open then.
I don't know. It was already open, so I don't know if you opened it or what.
Okay. Okay, I found where it is. So the closest one is there, so I have to go the run to the left.
I love my new PNG, I'm not gonna lie.
It's cute.
I definitely like the we'll be right back since switch to Fox fucking flipping you off.
Yikes, yikes,
Watch out for the
yikes, yikes,
faces.
yikes. Yikes. Yikes.
Jack, shut up!
Oh,
Oh, there's 3 of them.
There are quite a few in here of these bitches, huh?
yeah.
Yep, he got you.
Oh,
I flashed you!
It didn't matter, there was like 4 more waiting for you.
Yeah,
man.
we're just missing one. Oh, we are missing 2, okay. Thank God it saves progress.
Yes, or else I'd be mad.
Okay, let's see which one we're missing.
Gotta get a flashlight. Flashlight.
Flashlight? Hell yeah.
I'll get a flashlight. Flashlight. Oh, there's a map here. I didn't know that.
Okay, so this door's already open.
You are here. So I have to go straight and then left and then left
already
and
open, yeah.
left. Alright, straight.
Women
Does
logic.
not make sense on this world. It makes sense on the other
Left.
world.
Oh. shucks.
Yeah, sadly.
It's the map of
Damn.
the other wall, not this one.
Okay. So I gotta go this way. Then I gotta
You are
go
here,
this
and
way.
you want that. All right, and the doors we already opened are already open, so open those.
Okay, this one is-
as you go
I
by,
have-
just to make sure life's easier.
Come on. Oh crap! It got me! No!
Bruh.
Damn smilers!
Okay, this door's not open.
I was going the right way, I think.
I'm pretty sure if you go
But
when the
there's
green
this-
light
Oh,
is, you'll
but-
get less smilers.
I did
I went
go
back
in
to
the
the
green
beginning.
light. I did. I went in the green light. There were so many.
Bro, get away from me. I'll
Definitely,
fuck you
these
up.
guys of Mag need to go to the gym, brother. You are having 10 steps and you're already tired.
Shit.
It was like
Even
This guy works out. Hey
That
guys, I
was
think he lifts. Do you think he lifts, bro?
scary.
He sure lifted me into his mouth.
It's
Kind of hot, not gonna lie.
You're into the monster thing, eh?
Oh, hell yeah. Give me a slime girl any day. I'll get all nice and gooey with that baby girl. I don't even care if she gonna dissolve me afterwards. As long as I get my rocks off first.
brother.
You are gonna get eaten by a
Oh,
smiler.
fuck, I fucked up.
Oh,
He was right there.
yikes. Oh, jeez.
My aches and
Jeez
pains.
Louise.
My aches and pains.
Oh my gosh, this is
My
such a
foot
nightmare.
itches.
California knows how to party.
Man, how many times are we gonna
Shake,
fail this
shake
level?
it, baby.
I mean, we're almost done. We just gotta get. Where's the right doors? I'm not sure how many more levels is left. I'm pretty sure there's at least maybe 5 more. But then again, like I said, they might have added more.
Alright, waiting for that green light. Come
Because
on.
usually the
green light.
arcade was the last level, but I forgot there was extra ones. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
I'm
Not
leaving the
loving
doors
it.
open just in case.
Oh crap, that was the skinwalker. John of a monkey's butt.
It's green.
Oh. Okay. I'm in a room with a bunch of stop signs and parking
Okay.
signs.
There's no way you guys didn't die. What the hell?
Yeah, it happened to me a moment ago too.
There's a panel on the
Bullshit.
wall.
Yeah, if you're in the other world and you open a door and there's a panel on the wall, go immediately find the way back to the normal world to open it.
Oh.
Because you gotta open it
Okay.
in the other world and then open it in the normal world.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave this room. Okay. Oh boy. Uh-oh. Get away! Get away!
Essentially, we have to open the 4 doors and activate the 4 switches inside of the rooms on the other
I
side.
see.
And, well, we have to open the
Or
doors
we'll
on the
open
other
the
side to
wrong
open the
door.
doors on the normal side in order to get to the switches to activate them.
Oh, okay, I got to it. I kind of trying to get around these stupid signs, man.
He was right there, bro.
He was
That's
right, yeah,
crazy.
right there. I just fall into a smiley.
It's that last one. I can't
Ama,
freaking
that's
find
already,
the room.
That's already activated. It's in green. It's already activated.
Oh, it is. Oh.
Oh,
Dang, I
well,
thought I actually did something. I guess not.
you almost did.
Let
It's just, I think there's just one room we're missing.
2 rooms actually.
me see that map. I want to get an idea. Where the hell's that map at?
Well, I have a feeling one of the rooms is easy to find, whereas the other one is not.
Where is that map? That's what I want to find.
You have to go all the way back to the
to
beginning.
where you
and
were.
You're going the wrong way.
I'm going the wrong way.
Yeah.
There's a door. Well, trying to find the, the map that says where the rooms are.
way.
Well, which way should I go?
I don't know. I don't freaking
right
I know
way.
map. I ain't no cartographer. What I look like? I
You
make
should
maps all day.
I mean, you're black, so
Oh,
you have
okay.
cartons.
You're
Whoa,
talking to a
what's this,
dyslexic person
guys?
about maps. Yeah, that's crazy.
Hey, look! I found a room full of stuff.
And it's green, it's already activated too.
Aw.
If the door is
Shucks.
open and there is one of those switches, we already went there. You cannot open those doors without going down there.
Okay. I gotta avoid the frog.
The map is right behind you.
Here. Okay. There's 2.
Uh-huh.
So
No good luck figuring out where to go.
let's see. So I gotta jump down the hole, and I gotta try and go. I don't know. I'm never
Essentially, you
gonna
want to find
my
the hole
way.
that's close to the door.
Yeah. I wish it would show me better detail, but whatever. Okay. Are you both dead?
Yep.
Ah, crap.
What'd you think? We were just sitting here giving you advice for no reason. Of course we're dead.
Gonna wait. Alright, so when I jump down, you're gonna tell me which way you think I should go. How about that?
Good luck with
Probably
that.
right.
Right? Okay.
Probably left.
That doesn't help me at all.
Right, left, right. Pick a side.
I'm gonna wait till it turns green again.
Twix bars. You pick left Twix or right Twix? Whichever Twix you pick, that's where you're gonna go.
Come on, turn green. Here we go. Okay. Left,
Careful,
right.
Smiley behind you. Never mind, you left.
Oh crap.
Go right.
Right? Is this way?
And if you see another
Yeah.
investigator, run. It's not us.
Uh-oh. Ah!
Don't hit the wall. Move.
Easy for you to say. You're not there.
Oh crap. Ah. Of course I did.
How could I ruin your
And
life?
she
I
died.
wasn't even there.
Bro, don't go fucking Ninjago.
I just fucking did. Lloyd.
That is Lloyd.
I named you.
I name you. Lloyd. Lloyd.
Lloyd.
Who would thought
I
his name
don't
wasn't
get the
French?
reference.
I know,
I
right?
don't get the reference.
It's a Ninjago joke.
I don't know what Ninjago is.
Lego.
Oh, I don't care about
It's,
Lego.
it's an old Lego TV show.
Oh.
It
Bro,
was actually really
Again.
good, believe it or not.
I just
cartoon.
fall and there was a freaking smiley down on the entrance.
Oh, yep, yep.
Yeah, it looks like I'm happened the same thing.
How are you older
Yeah.
than me and you don't know what Ninjago is?
I don't care about Lego. Why would I watch a Lego
I don't care about
show?
Lego either, but Ninjago was funny.
I've never seen it or heard of it.
It was a good show. You should definitely watch it sometime.
I like the Lego movie.
I feel like you're an uncultured swine now because of that.
I was never into Legos. It's like it was like a
I
boy
mean, I was
thing,
never into
you
Lego.
know?
Motherfucker. Right into the faces I go.
Yep, it happened to
That's
all three
funny.
of us.
Yeah, it's like as soon as you jump down, they're there. They just getcha. That was great.
Fucking poly hell over there.
I think that's what it means. The green, red, and yellow.
They got
There
their
is a
their
smiley right
polycules
there.
going on.
We need a poly pole.
They got their polycule. It's a real face polycule down there.
We need a poly pole, a poly pole.
Ba-da-da-bam.
Don't touch my polypole. We'll fight.
That was so funny.
I will fight you for the polypole, bruh.
Poly pole.
Bro, don't jump in the hole. Don't jump in the hole. It's right fucking there waiting for you.
I ain't jumping.
Yeah, I heard it. Okay, I just noticed the red, green, and yellow. It means that there is something beneath you there.
Okay, one of the doors just got opened.
That the one I just opened.
Hello.
Okay, well now get the other one.
Damn it.
Polypole, 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 polypole. Pole of polypole.
Polly Pocket.
Okay, so the last one's gonna be the far end of the map.
Yeah, I'm just trying to check which direction. It's right.
She's dead.
Good. Yep.
She got polypoles.
Yep.
Polly Pocket, but I took her
got-
eyes out of her socket. Ayo.
I got another Ghoul-Aid.
I guess nobody heard that dark thing I just said.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. That's the most.
I did
I
hear
heard
you
today.
say that.
I said Polly Pocket, but I pulled her eyes out of her socket. Fuck Polly. Fuck Raggedy Ann too.
Right, you jump in there and you run to the right or straight, whatever. Yeah. Get it, get it, get it. Oh, get it, get it. Oh God, get it, get it. Oh. You got this. You got this. There it is. Whoop.
That's the
there
bathroom. I
it
already
is.
been here.
Whoop. There it is. Oh shit.
No, I said to go right.
That's not you.
I see the skin shifter, dude.
Okay, I gotta wait.
Skin shifter, dude.
Yeah.
Skin shaker.
Skin stealer.
The foreskin.
You have to go on that door over there. I need to find a way to get from on there.
The skinned men. Skin shifter. Cannot. Cannot with skin. Oh, wow. That's crazy.
What happened?
He said foreskin.
You
No,
just
the foreskin
now
stealer?
heard that?
I literally just heard you say like 2 seconds ago, like 20 seconds ago. What do you mean just now?
I like how it just
What do you mean just
registered
now?
with you.
No, I heard it. I was even reacting to it. I just, yeah, don't know what to say.
I
know
was
what?
waiting for you to
These are
comment
for you.
on that too.
These are for you. Okay? Go look at stream. These are for you.
Oh my god, let me see. Let's see. Oh, come on.
Nah, I did.
He's flipping me the birds.
Damn right.
Yeah. Yow.
Bro, I need to find that door and I don't see it because I don't know where the fuck do I fall on.
At this point, just fall anywhere and just keep running around until you find it. That's the only way we're really gonna find it at this point. The bird, bird, bird. The bird is the word.
Run away.
Okay,
Bird is the word, and the word is
big
fuck
room, big
you. Watch it. Face behind you. You got it.
Bird, bird, bird. Oh. Alright.
Bird,
There's
bird,
only one
bird.
left though.
Bird is the bird.
Bird is the word.
Surfing. Alright, now I grabbed the flashlight, goddammit. Too legit to quit.
Blop 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 blop. Blop, 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 blop. I know all of these things. Oh God, I'm so old.
And then another.
Screaming simulator.
Hey,
Yeah.
yo.
Whenever something scary gets to me, that's for sure.
Fucking parking
Whoa.
signs. Fuck you.
Let's go! Ready? Into the hole! Oh my god. Get him. Flash him. Flash him good.
Flash
Get
them all,
him.
let God sort them out.
Yeah. bash you. Come here, bitch. Come here, bitch. Come here, bitch. Oh!
He came to you.
I'm gonna go ahead and assume that he came to her. That snort.
Oh, shit.
Cannot.
Okay.
Amayame tried to be brave.
I almost shit
He
myself.
tried to be brave.
Amayame trying to be brave challenge impossible. Oh, the smiley was just a front for Skin Stealer. How rude. Fuck you, fuck style.
Oh my god, dude. That was funny.
I'm pretty sure where I died, you had to go down that hallway, head to the right, and it should be down there.
Get ready. Get ready for crazy shit everywhere.
Careful behind you,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
a face.
Yup. There's a nasty little skin shifter, skin stealer, whatever the hell's foreskin, I don't know.
Bro,
Four skins
he
in.
died, he still killed me.
You got
Literally,
killed
the
by
fucker
four.
just died on my face and then just killed me.
You got killed by four skins in.
Too funny.
Imagine getting killed by four
Oh.
skins in. Embarrassing.
Alright, I'm ready. My body is ready. Let's go.
My body in the temple, but I'd be abusing the fuck out of that shit.
This motherfucker, he just spawned on my face.
Well, he likes it on your
crazy.
face.
He literally didn't even transform. He just spawned right on my face. He's red.
Yo, you
got him.
jumped down right as it was turning yellow. Oh god. Whoa.
Motherfucker.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey, hey. Hey.
Another
This
one.
is the last one, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I know
I wanna
that's
say.
that's green already.
Oh,
Fucking Christ.
this place sucks.
Tell me about it.
Damn. This layer, this
Okay,
level.
I'm getting located already. I think so. No, I'm not. It's green. That one is already done.
Yikes. I think something's gonna kill you.
Run,
oh yeah,
run,
oh yeah,
run,
run,
oh,
run,
hot
run,
dog.
run, Oh shit.
Bye, Felicia.
That was scary.
Red Bull gives me wings.
Green.
Uh,
Senpai, come in my ass and call me Obama!
oh my
Bet.
god. No. That soundboard is diabolical.
I
Really
have
is,
more.
bro.
Let me get them. Let me fetch
Oh
them real
god,
quick.
are they worse than that one?
Wait, guys. Did we not
What?
notice this?
Oh, shit.
Shit.
No way.
It's already green that too.
Okay.
I know, but
so-
at least there's another entrance
Still.
that doesn't involve us getting murdered.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
never
tried
mind.
to get murdered? Oh my god.
Well, fuck me.
I don't know.
Oh no. I think that kills people, Carl.
The giant
people.
horse cock weighs over 11 pounds.
You know what else weighs over 11 pounds? My fat ass.
One heck of a freaking soundboard. There's no cock like horse cock.
Okay, for like sound effects, I have that the same part
You
one. I
ever
also
see
have
Mari
this
Mari
one.
sing that?
What the fuck? Oh, someone's getting their cheeks clapped.
It's called back shots, by the way.
God. That doesn't sound fun at
Domain
all.
expansion. Back shots.
That sounds terrible. More like somebody getting murdered.
That's what I want to do someday to somebody. Infinite
And
back
the last
shots.
one of back shots, Deem, I have this one.
That's
Are we
crazy.
gonna get banned on Twitch for these?
No.
I've been
sounds?
using them for a while. We haven't got banned yet.
Twitch lets people get away with worse shit than I've ever done on Twitch. So
Like driving and streaming.
Oh.
Yeah. How many people got away with driving and streaming? Actually, Emily still got away with it.
yeah.
Now she's the brand ambassador.
Oh yeah, I heard about that today.
She said.
Twitch ambassador.
She said. Wait, what? Wait, I gotta use a blinker? Nah, I'm good. Good luck, everybody else.
She said, good. Yeah, I was just about to say, good luck, everybody. Yeah, that's what she.
She's like, I
said.
turned now. Good luck, everybody else.
God,
That's
dude.
racist? Yes. That's true. Also, yes.
Not racist if it's true. Stereotypes exist
I mean,
for a reason.
I was gonna say that if it's earned, it's still racist, but it's true.
Yeah, stereotypes
Just like
are
in Scary
earned.
Hit Rip is right.
Look
We're
at
all
everybody
just
else.
dying
Rip.
constantly. They literally just gotta find like one more panel.
Yeah, but the thing is that we don't find the entrance to that door because when we get teleported, we get teleported on a different plane that does not match 1-1-2-1. This one.
Yeah, so it's like, how are we
Telling
supposed
you,
to
pretty sure
find
you gotta
it?
go through that door, but you gotta get through all those enemies to get to the fucking thing. It's annoying.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh,
Oh.
uh.
The
I'm
skin
pretty sure it's
textures there,
down the
too.
hall to the left.
Bro,
Watch it.
he again died and killed me after he died.
You're... Oh,
Okay, someone's gotta distract
dude.
skinwalkers in the fucking faces. That's all we can think of.
The problem, I don't have problem with the Skinwalker. The problem is
I
the
can be
fucking
bait.
smileys that don't work correctly.
Well, if we go
they
together,
just-
we should be able to stop the fucking smileys
I
from
can
getting
be
to us.
okay. Let's all stay together and
Well, then
flash
get your butt
as
over
much
here.
as we can. I gotta put my flashlight on. Okay.
Well, do it
Put your
faster.
flashlight off.
Yeah, get your flashlight on. Then stay
Where'd
together
you
and then
guys
immediately
go?
fucking runs off on the
I
road.
don't know.
Okay, we're technically supposed to get into this fucking door over here.
Yeah, that's why I take this one back here,
I take that one, but they
and I would
teleport
assume
us
so
to a
it's to
different
run
place.
this way. I know.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
the
going
thing
in.
is that does not match. That was in red, by the way.
One down.
Okay.
Ah, it's fine. I already got the smiley out of my face.
I watch
In
your
a
back.
hole. Oh, skid sealer, go the other way.
Wow.
Yep. Behind you. Okay, Skin Sealer, walk away.
I've seen your smiley. Just too many smileys.
Oh,
Well,
Fuck.
there's
they're
so
getting-
many.
They're grouping up.
Oh God. How
It's
are you
gotta
guys
be down
supposed
here.
To survive this.
It's not here. We got moved to another spot. That's the thing.
Okay, but there's
got
gotta
a
be
smiley
something down
behind
this
you.
way.
Smiley behind you, Slayer.
I got it.
Okay.
Oh,
you're
he's on
good.
me. He's on me.
Is that the door? Maybe. Maybe.
Looks like it. Yep, this one's red.
Okay.
This is the right
Oh,
one. I found it.
Hell yeah!
Found it.
Told
Okay,
you.
open. I will open
Okay.
it on the side.
Told you it was down this damn hallway.
Oh God, how are you gonna get back up?
Easy.
Okay, I'm
Either
outside
I'm gonna
already.
make it or I'm
outside
gonna
already. I
die.
will
One or
open
the
door.
other.
Find a way to get out here. I will open this.
Gotta be.
Oh,
Someone...
told you I'd die. They got me around the corner. Gay.
It's
We
open.
got it! Yay!
Alright, now go close the gate so the fucking monster can't eat you.
Hell yeah. That took forever. That was a pain in the ass level.
Yeah.
Dang.
It happens. What are you gonna do?
The back rooms, the back rooms, the bathrooms, the bathrooms.
Deck
Yay.
walk rooms.
Go,
Oh,
go, go, go,
shit,
go.
No! Bullshit! I was on the freaking corner!
He didn't time it. He had to run like super fast. That was good.
That was funny. Oh my god, that was scary.
Fuck
I
that
did not
lizard
know that was
man.
gonna happen.
Go, 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 go,
Oh
go,
my
go.
god.
Amma.
Okay.
Alma, come
Amma,
on.
you have to
Okay.
close
You
it
got
again.
this.
Yep.
Close
I
it
got
and run.
this.
Close it and run.
Don't get
Oh my god.
You clearly don't got this.
Okay, I got stuck. Hang on. Okay, ready?
He said, I got this. Walks right
No
into a
more
stop
cupcakes
sign
for
and gets
you.
stuck. Oh my god. Get a little bit. I left you behind. Bye.
Oh wait, it counted.
Yeah. It counted.
That was so good. Oh my god.
Oh,
Okay,
hey, look. Look at all this
3.
stuff.
3. I don't even know how to freaking. Oh look, it's a bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff here.
Oh, it's a cash register. Okay, I need someone to read the things off on it for me. On the
Okay.
paper.
There's nothing here.
It's on the cash
Okay,
register.
I will move if you
3.
if you're not in the freaking way, bro. Your ass is too fat. The problem is that only one person can say it there. Okay.
I need you to count how many.
Count how
So
many?
it's 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19,
Okay,
20.
3 minus 4, 5, 2.
You want to run that by me again without the whatever the fuck you just did?
3 minus 4, 5, 2.
3 minus 4, 5, 2? Huh?
Yeah. Give it to me. I know it.
Just tell me positions. Okay.
3,
So
7,
3's in the
5,
first
2.
one.
3, 7, 5, 2.
That makes more sense. Okay, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nope, it's not 3, 7, 5, 2.
3, 7, 5, 2.
Whatever. Nope, I did not get it. I'm brute forcing the last one. Fuck it.
Can I try?
No.
He's like, no. Nope. Oh, let's see.
You know what?
Yeah,
Fine.
it's like
Take it.
3, 7, 5, 2.
Move your fat ass out of my way, fatty.
Unless that's 2, 5, 7, 3, maybe backwards.
No, if you look at the keys on it, it's the third one down, and then you have to count from that one to the next number.
3, 4, 5.
So it's not gonna be 3, 7, 5, 2, because that and the keyboard are not the same.
Ow.
So it's 3, 4, 5,
3 minus
6,
4,
7,
5, 2,
8,
there you
9,
go.
10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 3, 14.
Stay there.
Whatever, it was 3, 14. You are wrong.
I told you
Alright,
3
what-
minus 4, 5, 2. I got it right.
But
I
you said it
don't
in a
like
weird way.
Bro, 3 is you count 1, 2, 3
Escape
minus
the
4. You
snack
got 4 on
rooms.
the
That's
on
funny.
backwards.
Snack
It's 5 and 2.
That was called the snack.
Oh my God.
I remember this.
Oh no.
Red rooms.
Oh, it's gonna be bad for
Oh.
all of us. Someone might
I
die.
don't like
I'm just gonna
this.
say it now.
It'll be me. I'll be the first one.
One of us
Watch.
has to hold a gate open, and then we all have to run through it. I'll go down here and open the gate.
Oh dang.
Oh shit. Oh.
Yeah, I'll stand here. You guys go through.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm
that gate.
scared.
Yep.
Somebody's speaking to Vash in Spanish. Salga de mi casa.
Red,
Vash.
salga de mi casa, Vash. Oh, that's my friend's. His name is Red, so because the room is red, this is his house. ¿Qué pasa, Rojo? ¿Qué
Hola,
tal?
amigo. ¿Qué pasó?
Let's-
¿Estás
They're the
let's-
bien?
monsters
we need to
supposed-
be- we
oh,
need 2 people
we have
in
to go
here,
down the
though.
hall. That's why.
No, bro, we need 2 people in here.
No, I think you should go down here and start it.
Bro, the paper says 2 people.
Oops.
We
Then
just
why'd
came
y'all
back.
follow me? I'll go that way. Go that way.
Need 2 people in here. There you go. It's opening.
Oh, there's 3 of us. Okay, well, I'll go first, I guess.
I'll just stay here and watch.
Oh shit.
Run.
What? Oh.
Why would you leave the platform? You guys suck. You guys suck. You left me to die. Because you left the platform. You're supposed to leave it open so I can get through.
Oh, I didn't know. You said run.
Yeah, me run, not you run. You're running the wrong way, just so you know.
I noticed.
You think because you kept going backwards.
There's no exiting here.
You need a chainsaw, that's why.
Oh, Clump is raping you. Oh,
Why the
no.
Froggy had just dubstep out of nowhere?
Oh, by the way, that's Clump. Also, run.
Yeah.
Run, you,
Clump.
run, you fool. Can you run?
my
Can you
God.
run? Stop standing there. Just go. Your fat ass is in my way. We're gonna die.
Frog, Clump got me and I just opened the door. Fucking hell.
Okay, well, don't go the other way because you'll get eaten by a face.
It's Clump. It's Clump. It's Clump. He's in here.
Why are you staying still?
Ama, you literally have not been moving this whole time. You got me killed. You little shit.
No, I
I'm
ran. I ran.
You were
Oh,
running.
wait.
You were
No,
still
you're not moving. You're staying still.
I thought I was dead.
blocking my way this whole time.
Keep running. Run, freaking run, don't stop.
Which way do I go, George? Oh,
No, I don't know the way that
Whatever
doesn't get
the
you
frickin' door is
killed.
open.
Not that way. You were not running. You were standing there like a dork.
Yeah.
I thought I was dead. I thought I
No,
was
you were alive, you
dead.
goober. Go.
Alive. Oh shit. Oh.
Run.
I'm opening the fucking door.
I'm aware. I was telling her to run.
Can't open this door.
No, just go straight down the hall.
Doors open?
Amma
That's what
just
Clump
wants to
is.
die,
Oh,
I
that's
guess.
what Clump is.
You went the.
Oh shit, I got stuck. I got freaking stuck. I got stuck. The freaking card
Oh
moved
my God.
got me stuck.
Yeah, it just fall down the blue hole, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah, I tried to do that, but the fucking card just made me have like body block.
Keep walking.
Which way do I go? Which way? I can't see
You went the
anything.
wrong way.
Why?
Yeah, I don't see shit anymore.
It's all
She went the
black.
wrong way, that's why.
What? Aw,
Yeah, I
man.
see hands or whatever the fuck it is.
She went the complete opposite direction.
Yeah.
Okay.
I run.
Yeah, Amma just got me killed again.
He's coming. Go.
Okay. Oh, damn these doors.
Every time he gets me there. I don't know why.
Right here? Oh crap, how do I get down? Okay.
You got me on the table
Where do I
top
go?
behind Amma trying to get faster.
I saw Clump, I saw Clump.
Okay,
Oh my
you
God,
see
oh my
the
God.
exit signs? That's the way you're going. And
Why the
now,
fuck there's the X that is freaking blocked? I tried to
because
block
you
it,
had to
but
go
not
the other way.
open.
Yeah. Eventually I'll get this down.
Oh my god, if
Can
you don't
fucking
move, if you don't move,
Amma.
you're gonna get
No,
me
get me
killed. You take a death.
Amma is gonna get me killed every single time, probably.
Oh god,
Probably.
I see him. I don't mean to be in the way.
Sure. Oh,
Get
fuck
that-
me.
Oh. Help me. Oh. Exit. Oh!
No, yeah, it's the blue hole you have to go into.
Oh, you said go to the exit. Clump was there.
I didn't say you go to the exit that way.
Yeah, you did.
I said follow the exit signs, yes, but I didn't tell you follow the exit signs, you're dead.
Oh, Clump is right on you.
He wants that booty.
Oh fuck.
You were actually close.
Yeah, I know. I hate that. But Amma got in the way every time.
All right, I'm gonna
All
stay
right,
back.
let him go first. No, you're gonna
Yeah,
move.
Now you can go back. You can go down.
Now you can come down. Hurry up.
Okay.
Alright, now we're good.
Now you guys can't blame me for killing you anymore.
You kept jumping on our heads.
Whoa, 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 whoa! Oh, Cluck just ran right past me. Holy fuck! Oh shit!
That'd be nice. Fuck, went the wrong way. We gotta go left, not right.
Yeah, I noticed.
This is nuts. Here comes Cluck.
Would be not as bad if we can flip through each other instead of walking and blocking each other.
Wee, wee, wee,
Yeah.
wee.
Also, the doors really open and close really close to each other.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying. Damn door.
Oh. I'm literally running behind.
I think I just found the door. It was the blue one right next to me on the left.
And Clump, I was like, oh, he doesn't see me.
Oh,
You going,
okay,
Bosh? You got this?
behind me.
That was funny.
Shit!
Nice.
Oh, keep going.
You got time.
Oh my
You're
God.
not leaving that close yet.
Yo, run, boy.
No, 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 no.
Go there. Oh, fuck. I think that was the way out, that blue door.
I'm following this. Okay, shit.
Oh,
Yeah, I think it was the blue door.
there was a smiler.
Yeah, they just tricked me in that one.
Yeah, there was
Slater,
a
wanna
blue
open it?
door. I think that's the door you had to
I'll
go
do
in,
it.
maybe.
I don't know which one of all those.
There was like a well-lit blue door. I'm gonna guess that's the one.
I didn't saw the blue door though. I was just running for my life.
Yeah. Whoa, 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 whoa.
Goddamn
oh my
doors, man.
God. Oh, what the? I got eaten right when I fell in the hole. Stop! Damn! Oh my God. Oh my
How did he catch me, bro?
God.
Ain't no way. Ain't no way.
Right on the stair. I
Oh,
love
there's
that
mine,
Bashu is
probably.
always the last one alive. Oh, I got you. He got you.
You on the stairs too? That's
I tried to go to the
bullshit.
stairs. I went down just in case. But now there's no point to go in here.
Well, that's because he's always ahead of us.
Fucking jump.
Wow. He got me as I was jumping. He's gonna catch you.
I see no blue door in here though.
The hell was that?
Shit.
Yeah, I think once you get down that hall, there's a blue door to the left.
She's a playset. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm gonna get my stream.
What about it?
I hate that the fucking door requires 2 swings.
Yeah,
I
I know.
shouldn't have clicked on
It
that.
just makes me lose
What'd
so
you
much
do?
time.
God, I'm gonna get in trouble.
Trouble for what? Fuck
Oh,
wrong
shit.
way.
Whoa, I mean,
God damn it.
I hear in my back.
Are you getting in trouble for what?
it was like I was making like AI videos of my avatar and I clicked it and it said the N word and it probably, the audio was probably on the screen.
Why did your AI video say the N-word? What?
He animated it. He animated me and made it say the N word and I didn't know what it was and I clicked that.
Bro.
Oh my God.
That's hilarious. I'm not even gonna
Like,
front.
he's gonna get me banned on Twitch! He didn't even warn me what it was!
I mean, was it really such a bad thing to get banned on Twitch at this point?
Now he says that he's like, don't play these. Well, thanks for telling me now, dude.
Well, I'm dead. Just like fucking lost my way because I was
downstairs, so I
distracted.
still have time. I don't hear him yet.
Alma says that like I haven't said the N-word like 10 times on the stream.
I hear it. I see the blue. No, he just closed me.
Okay, well then I guess it's not the blue door.
Oh, it ain't the blue door?
That was some bullshit.
No, the blue door
there.
cucked him.
Yeah, the blue door closed and just spawned a smiley behind me. Did you fall for it? Oh shit, I sent me to the wrong side.
Yeah, we might be cooked. Fucking doors, man.
And the triggers go left, right all the time.
Fuck, wrong way. Of course he was right up my ass.
Oh shit, I saw you dying.
Yeah.
Well, I'm done.
He's close.
Bro, I got killed by Blob and a Smiley at the same time.
It's crazy. Lump.
Lump.
It's like, I didn't know you were streaming. In the future, never play anything you haven't vetted yourself ever. That should have been rule number one. Yeah, I should have.
I mean, rule number
never
one, why would you send
play-
somebody a clip of you saying the N-word anyway?
Yeah, that's true.
Well, like, it was just like animations of Amayame. I didn't know they had audio, because usually when he does AI animations of me, they don't have audio. So I just thought he was animating me and making me move, and I'm like, oh, that's really cute.
You're
I
behind
didn't
us.
know what it was.
You just hear the freaking N-word out of nowhere.
I like how the monster's stuck.
Loop him like it's DVD.
Are there more than one clock?
Damn it.
Is
No,
there
not
more
in this
than
game.
one? Okay, I'm gonna keep him here, you guys.
Bro,
I
What
got,
do you mean keep him here?
Okay, never mind, he got me.
he got me too. Okay, there are multiple clumps dead.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe when one
thought there
stops
was just
chasing
one.
one spot, another one starts chasing you. I don't know. I was only under the impression it was one.
Well, I guess there's more than one. I thought I was gonna keep it from you guys and feed the bait, you know? Oh well.
Nah, it doesn't work like that, sadly.
Oh, I'm fucked.
Fuck. Wrong way again.
I got stuck on the freaking wall for some reason.
Well, I kept them busy long enough for you to get down the stairs.
Yep. Unless someone one of those spawned right next to me.
No, I don't think it's taking his time. Getting to you.
Fucking bullshit ass doors.
Then again, I don't really start running really fucking fast.
Oh, that's the wrong spot.
Go back.
Yeah. The thing is that at this point, it's so many routes, I forget which one is left, which one I have to go right.
I know. I can never remember.
Wait, what does this mean?
By the
is
looks
this a
of it,
map?
that's the path we have to take.
Oh.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Wrong way.
Fucking hell, I just got confused out of nowhere. Okay, the screen went right to the fucking fuck's sake and I just got lost.
Bro, there's no way you're that much on me. Yeah, and I walked the fucking long way. It's the door. I might need a break. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, fuck! I got caught on the table.
Damn it. Wrong way.
Walls bullshit.
You got me. I went the wrong way again.
Oh, I hear him right behind me. He's gonna get me.
Oh, there's smileys right behind you too.
I
I don't know why the fucking
walls are
smiley's
fucking
chasing
annoying.
you though. What the fuck?
Like
When
those
does the
fucking
smiley
doors are
chase you
extremely
randomly?
annoying. I don't know why. Why they have to put it like so next together? They can actually just get you stuck. Not like they don't slow you. They make you get stuck.
That's kind of the point, technically. Really should have patched those shits out in the last fucking
Yeah,
time
they
they
should
did
patch it,
it.
like put it a little bit more further away or something.
Yeah, like
Because
you
it
walk into
literally
it and
just
it
blocks your
blocks you and
vision.
you're completely blacked out and you don't know what the fuck you're looking
Yeah,
at.
that's the problem. It's not that they just block it; they just make you blind out of nowhere. Because again, this freaking door is for some reason it's full black, so I cannot see shit.
Mm-hmm. But now see it. It's all in our house. Alright, remember to go left.
Gotta pee again. I drank a lot of Kool-Aid. Be right back.
There's nothing in here. There is no path in both ways.
That makes no sense then.
There is no path on any of these spots.
I'm about to look up a solution real quick because I don't understand how the hell we're not in.
Okay, let me see.
All
Go
right.
stairs. If we stay here, what? 1, 2, 3. Emergency exit. I'm gonna try.
Apparently you can soft lock it. Oh, that's the
Like
other
also
one.
there's a smiley in there. Go to the right, okay. I have no idea where to go. All the freaking routes I get to are just not.
Hang on. Blue quarters are safe zones when the chase starts. Flee along the blue lights instead of running the red halls blind. Standing on the pressure plate opens the right, blah, blah, blah. Got a chainsaw. Do not let yourself get cornered. Keep to the blue and push
I'm
through the
back.
final blue hallway to escape.
I feel better. Whew. All that Kool-Aid.
That doesn't really help at all.
129.
Push on to the final blue hallway to escape. Keep to the blue. And
Hotel
don't get
chase
cornered.
right
Clear and you move on to level 180. I don't know what the hell that means.
Hey, Swamp. What's up, Swamp? Oh. Look, I'm on the table. He can't get me. He can't get. Oh shoot! Yes, he can.
Hear about that? Oh, what the frick?
I was gonna say he can't get me.
I'm mad now. That's some bullshit.
Are we gonna be stuck on this level forever?
Yes, so.
I'm checking where to go actually.
Damn you, Swamp! Clump is the worst. I hate Clump.
Okay, I found the route. I found the route.
Oh shoot. It's too slow.
Oh, there is 2 clumps chasing me. What the fuck? Yeah, there's multiple clumps chasing me.
Clumps are a menace.
You're probably gonna run into
Oh, there's a
them.
plump right in front of me. Okay. But I found the way. I found the way. I know the way.
It's Clump. It's Clump. Do-do-do-do.
I do not know the way.
Let's hopefully I can reach there.
I didn't even think to go through there to make it faster.
I keep getting stuck on the doors and the tables. This is where I always die. Always die. Run. Yep, I'm dead. Every time I jump down the hole, I die because I get disoriented and I go the wrong way. I've never made it to the stairs, not even once. You guys got this. I believe in you. Yeah, you got this. Almost there, guys. Oh, no.
Clump got me.
Shit. I got distracted. I saw you and I didn't saw the sign, so I got distracted. My bad. We had to go on the direction where you got killed left and then right again. So, Ama, can you? Okay.
I'm moving.
The fact of not getting in the middle is something you still do not.
Fucking doors.
I'm lagging when I get through the tables there.
Into the hole. It always gets.
I keep getting stuck on these stupid tables. That's the problem.
Let's see if I can get there now.
Not tables, fucking doors.
The doors, yeah.
Oh,
Oh no, you got
I'll
clumped.
slow him down. Yeah, I know.
It's
Slow him
on
down.
you, Vashu. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's all on you. Oh, that clump is catching up to you fast.
Oh, you were right there too.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
Thank
Oh,
fuck.
you did it.
Thank
Yes.
fuck.
And the thing is, at the end, you don't have to follow the signs. You have to actually
Oh
go
my
in the opposite
God.
direction at the last freaking corner.
Oh
That
my
was the thing that was
God.
fucking us over.
We have to run through here again, don't we?
No.
Yep.
I don't want to run.
Oh, fuck.
A, B, C.
Oh, no, this is the one with the computer, or the
The
monitors.
TVs, yeah, and
Puzzle.
monitors, yeah.
Yeah.
There's an elevator in here.
Elevador.
Going up.
Elevador.
Excelsior.
Ascensor.
Ascensor. Ah.
Like ascent. Ascensor.
Me gusta aceituna
Oh!
en mis pantalones.
What?
Tienes nalgas.
Tengo
Tienes
un
buenas
gato
nalgas.
en mis pantalones. Tengo un gato en mis pantalones. Sí.
Why you have a cat in your pants?
Yeah, why do you have
Is
a
that
cat in your
Or are you
pants?
just happy
That's
to
a
see
little
me?
Is that a cat in your pants? You just happy to see me.
Mi español es muy malo.
Don't worry, I don't think it can be worse than Slayers.
Bitch!
Yeah, but aren't you like part Hispanic? Shouldn't you know some
Oh.
Spanish?
That don't
there
mean
are moss
shit,
in here, by the way.
homie.
Oh,
I grew up in
you
America.
scared the
We
fuck
didn't
out
need
of
to
me,
learn
bitch.
fucking Englishes or languages.
I just went out and saw a red figure. I thought it was the guy of the how do you call
Did
that?
you not see the giant spider chasing one of you down the hall?
What?
That's Ama. That's what she can't speak
You
Spanish,
didn't
man.
hear me scream it.
I found the monitor.
Oh, I found the monitor too, and I found the spider.
Yeah, you have fun with that.
Yep. I was with the monitor, so I couldn't
Oh
move because
my
because I had to get rid of the monitor first, so it took time.
Oh.
And you have a mothman on your
That's
back.
scary. That was scary. I don't like that. That was very scary.
There's my body.
Just roll it right through him. The monitor and the
Fuck.
chunks.
Well, this is problematic.
How are
We have 2 monitors.
The movement of these fucking TVs is freaking annoying.
They're annoying.
It's so bad, it's annoying.
Oh god, is that me?
I don't know.
Yeah.
All your
I
bodies
was
look the
the
same,
one right
bro.
next to the monitor.
So, where do you gotta move this thing to?
Down
The
here.
elevator.
It's eerily quiet now.
Yeah.
TV, okay. Where it says TV.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Now you gotta not get eaten by the spider.
No, you come back, so I don't think we're get you. Shush.
Oh god.
You're not making it better.
Roll it, baby, roll it!
Alright. Keep on rolling, baby.
Rolling, 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 raw.
I don't know which one of you is more cringe.
Who, me?
Both of you. Being cringy as fuck.
You know you enjoy the cringe. You want to roll in the cringe like Cheeto dust.
Ew, no. Never that. No, God, not you. Not this. Don't do this to me.
God.
I forgot I had to go downstairs and put the monitor. You're Cheeto dust.
Cool. Da, 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 da. I like the
That's one is
elevator music.
C.
Sí, señor. Por
Sí,
favor,
señorita.
claro. Claro que sí.
Yeah.
Este
Me
reclino
olvida
no estoy
mucho de la lengua.
Oh my lord.
No entiendo español. Mi gato es muy pequeño. Amayame es muy caliente.
Never
Yeah.
mind.
Latina caliente.
Oh shit!
Oh, oh, oh dear, oh dear, oh it kicked. Oh, it killed
I forgot
you
I
and it
can't
didn't
get
even
too
go
close
out
to
the
it.
door.
Well,
We're alive.
let's hope it saves progress. Yes, it does. Thank God. Alright.
Ta-da. Dee-dee-dee-dee-da-da.
Yeah, I forgot I can't mock it at the doorway. Because that kills people,
Okay,
Carl.
so-
That kills people.
People car. Okay, we gotta find another TV cart and roll it.
Okay, don't want to go in there.
Oh, you get electrified. It's a bathroom.
What?
Whoa. This one's actually clean.
Butter,
That's
yes.
nice.
Oil, no.
Oh,
I found a.
And don't use all my hamburger meat.
Hamburger cheeseburger, cheese.
Woo!
Well, the reason I got the egg noodles is I was gonna make chicken with broccoli with the Italian dressing with egg noodles.
That sounds good.
Instead of make something different. There's broccoli in there.
Heard the spider run by.
I also got onion powder to make potatoes.
Whoa!
Onion
Oh
potatoes.
no, there's Mothmen. There's Mothmen. Don't look out the window. Also,
Yeah,
there's
I
lots
knew
of
that.
drinks in the
I said I got
bathroom.
onion powder to make onion potatoes.
Ooh. Onion potatoes, good. There we
Alright, I'll
go.
grab it in a
Keep
minute.
my sanity.
I said I'll grab it in a minute.
Oh god, the curtain's opening up. Bye bye.
Okay, going downtown.
Oh no, that's fine. Just leave it the way it is.
Walking fast.
Is that curtain gonna open? Okay, that one's
I don't
not
like tomatoes
opening.
like that.
Ooh, candy bar. What the fuck?
By the way,
If you want
why I
tomatoes,
cannot
put
go
them in
down?
yours.
I put the TV in there. I cannot go down without you guys.
What do you mean?
I already have the one of the TVs on there.
Did you put the TV in the elevator? The one
Yes,
with
but I cannot go
electricity?
down. Okay.
You just
The
press the
spider is
button,
here,
it goes
okay.
down. That's probably
No, it's
why.
not letting me go down. It actually just cancels off and opens back again.
I don't
Probably
know.
I need to go with you
Oh,
for some
wow.
Hey,
reason.
the spider on my-
Wow.
fuck, I'm dead. Well, now you don't need to worry. Go ahead.
Okay.
It's all you, baby.
Don't understand why we all have to be done now. Trying to escape the spider, got fucking caught the electricity. And the spider got me anyway.
Hey, at least one of us is alive. Progress.
Never you, though.
Nope, never me. Hey, ain't no shame in
Sorry,
it.
I gotta
told
be a
you
smart
guys,
ass.
I told you guys I'm a scrub gamer. You know that.
I had to
Yeah,
be a
scrub
smart
daddy
ass.
and
That's
scrub
just what
mommy.
I am. And
My
nobody
yummy
agrees with
never
you. Fuck them.
wins.
I don't agree with that. Wait, hold on a second. You ever heard that meme?
What meme?
It's like, oh, if people don't agree with you, just fuck them. And he's like, I don't agree with that. The guy goes to fuck him, and he's like, wait.
Oh God, Mothman. Scary Mothman.
Moth bitch.
Spider is so fast.
Like, they don't agree with you, fuck them. So, then if you don't agree with that, I'm gonna fuck you.
Mothman.
You gonna give him a
Was the
theme
room I
song?
was in
No,
before I died.
Mothman.
Mothman. Oh, there's a TV in the bathroom. How quaint. All
How
right.
quaint. The fuck?
This is
like
the
the-
first time I hear that freaking word in my life.
I haven't heard that for
Uh,
years.
I like
For
the word
years.
quaint.
I haven't heard that for
Let's-
years.
Oh God, Mothman. Go away, Mothman. I don't like you. Oh God. He's gonna get
Honestly,
ya.
I feel like it would have been better if she said, how queer.
How queer. How quaint. Queer.
Nah, I like queer. It's spicy.
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Spicy
He's
words
pushing
with the
the
Slayer.
My favorite word is defenestrate. That means to throw somebody out of a window.
Mine's masticate, means to chew, but it also can be
Yeah.
masturbate, which means to beat
Yup.
beat your chicken until it dies.
Masticate. A masticating
Masticate rhymes
chicken.
with masturbate, and I love that.
It's a funny word. Heck yeah! How many TVs are we supposed to do?
Just
3. This is the last one.
Sweet!
Oh,
Hey, at least one of you is alive to get it done. It's
Talk about
fun
getting it done.
watching.
Get her done.
Get her done.
Get her done.
Yeah.
Get her done.
Yay! What's gonna happen now?
Go outside
Is
and
it
look.
scary? This way. Oh
Be
shit!
careful,
Oh
there's a
shit!
spider.
yep, that way.
Oh my god!
Definitely
How did you
has to be that
survive
way.
that? How did you survive that
Get her
fall?
done.
Calf of steel. Ah,
Oh,
water.
now we're in the back
Oh,
pools.
the back pools.
Time to go to the kiddie pool.
Boy, I don't even want to know what kind of.
I was gonna say,
terrifying
yeah, there
things
is
are in this
bacteria that
level.
will kill you, and there are whole pitfalls.
Oh
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, still water is a danger in real life.
Yeah, well, it's got brain-eating amoebas in it.
Yep. We got boats in here too.
You know, also poo-poo parasites. That stuff will infect you if you walk inside it. Oh yeah, it's the one with the raft.
Ooh,
Time to ride
raft.
the raft.
How do we ride the raft?
Like this.
What do we do? Oh,
Thank you. I was not seeing anything.
had to move my fat ass out
That
of the way.
poo-poo parasite. Those chocolate squirts, they
your-
keep me up at night.
How are we gonna get over that? Are we climb up that ladder there?
Yep. Exactly.
I'm loining.
We have to raise the water level by going up.
Ah.
I can smell you.
I can smell you.
I took a bath today, so I should smell good. For once.
That's a crazy statement.
You just never know what I'm gonna say. What do we do? Where do we go?
Turn
Whoa,
these
I don't think
valves.
I want to go.
If I'm not mistaken.
It's dark up here. I'm not going that way. That's scary.
That's Kiwi.
That's
Kiwi,
too
kiwi.
scary. It's too
Hey, someone turn the
scary. I
valves
don't
over
like
here
it.
while I turn these valves.
I see shit in here. What bulbs?
I think they all have to be activated at the same time.
Oh.
Okay, don't turn them. Whatever, I guess we're going upstairs then.
But it's dark and scary up there.
Kinda busy.
I can't see nothing.
Oh,
It's supposed
yeah.
to. Did it finally work?
Is that... So, what does this do, anyway?
Let's raise the water level so we can go to the next area.
Oh. Oh, I see. So we probably gotta do certain ones at a certain time or something. I don't know.
I don't recall.
It's a puzzle, like always.
Look it up. I'll be right back. Ugh.
Stupid puzzle. What level is this so I could look it up? Let's see. Escape the Backrooms raft level. Let's see here. To escape the raft section, level 37.2 dark pool rooms. Stay inside your raft to avoid the deadly plague water. Stop at checkpoints to turn valves. Descend into sublevels to raise water levels while hiding from clumps in deep water and perform a crouch jump at the final dry exit. So ride the raft, turn the valves, stop at designated platforms, and climb up ladders to find and turn the required valves. Well, we're trying to do that. Okay, which valves? let's see. Okay, right after your boat gets stuck on the dry ground, climb the ladder on the right. There are 4 red valves lined up along the wall. Turn them all on quickly. They are on a brief timer and will slowly twist back if you take too long. Alright,
Okay.
so we gotta do it like super fast. Like one after the other.
There you go.
Oh yeah, we did it! Heck yeah.
I was gonna cook, but I got busy doing other shit. I cleaned the kitchen and shit. Cause as soon as I washed the dishes and shit, cleaned my room and all that shit earlier, I don't hear it.
Now we just gotta
that
wait
rabbit's
for
cage
Slayer.
does. You know how much work that shit is?
Chungus.
And I was cleaning.
Chungus Among Us.
I'm right here. What are you talking about?
That damn sound. Chirp. Your butt is in my face.
How you like it? I trained myself.
So what were we doing wrong?
We had to turn the valves quick because they have a timer.
I told
So
Bro, do you know physics that you cannot jump a waterfall, right?
you. You can't if I try hard enough.
yeah.
Bro, you know you train a lot that one arm, but it's not that powerful, bro.
I wish I trained my arm that much. Once a day does not make powerful.
The things that guys talk about, I tells ya.
Women, I've heard you talk about weirder shit.
Yeah, but I heard women talking about weirder shit, literally.
Good
I
word.
remember one day,
Like what?
I was on a cafeteria, and I just heard a woman, like completely out loud, no hiding it, on how she reamed her boyfriend last night.
What the
Mhm.
hell?
Yep.
Oh my god.
I've heard women talk about how they get fucking late on their periods and shit. Don't get me started.
Jeez.
Women say men have no shame. Women are worse. They have more, less shame than us.
Women have no shame and a lack of accountability. Y'all can come up here and get in these goddamn pipes or what?
Go pipe down. You're a professional piper.
No, I need you to get up here and see about another ladder so we're doing an exploration. Or else I'm gonna be in the dark forever. Yeah, go up the ladders and get to the hole. We'll go down in the hole. In the next section, we have to go turn pipes. In
Wait, holes are you?
Monsters. Yeah. There we go.
I don't like the sound. This is scary sound.
There's monsters in here and pitfalls, so be careful.
Like that.
You don't have to like it.
Turn
You
them,
just
fill the
deal with it. I
Okay.
think there's clumps in here.
Like clumps.
You're
my
swimming in
least
the air.
They are my least favorite. I don't like.
Get the
Ah!
shit out of me, don't do that.
You just scared me.
Doesn't take you to show up out of nowhere.
I thought you were like a skinwalker thing.
No, no such
He's a
luck.
foreskin walker.
Disgusting.
Or skinwalker.
There you. Valve over there. To the right.
I see. Any more? Just see that one.
Oh yeah, you gotta hold it down. Watch my back.
I feel like something's gonna come through the door.
That's why I said watch my
Oh,
back.
there are mushrooms in here.
I'm watching your back. If something
Turned.
comes, it'll eat me first. Uh-oh, what is that? I saw lights in that little hall there. I don't know what that is.
I don't know. I don't have a flashlight, so. Nor a valve.
This room is kind of weird.
Did we
Another
turn
valve.
3 altogether? Can't remember.
I don't have any inventory. Like, I have no flashlights or nothing.
Like there was literally
shit.
a flashlight right there.
I think I'm dead.
Yeah, I'm dead too. Oh, blob.
Whoa,
I told you it was a clump. Oh, he's coming for me now.
He's clump.
I'm dead.
He's
Got you.
clump. He's clump. He bit you
He's
dead. He's clump. He's clump. He's clump. He's in your head. That clump.
Oh, well, there was
But
flashlights
you,
right here,
yes,
you
he is.
goobers.
I told you
Yeah,
there were
really?
flashlights there. You
Flashlights?
never listen to me.
Here.
I never listen to you. Because you don't shut up.
Yeah, that's why you fucking die young.
Because you don't shut up.
Uh,
Oh, clump.
he's gonna get me while I'm equipping my flashlight. Oh shit, there's a clump. Bye bye, clump.
I told you there was
See
a clump.
Oh yeah, there's a clump. There's a clumpy clump. Clumpity clump clump clump.
Turn it hard.
I'm trying. It's probably gonna kill me. Why can't I turn this thing faster?
Because you can't.
Oh my
He's not
God.
coming, though. You're fine.
Clump is gonna kill me.
Clump does not like water, so if you get into the water, he's gonna leave you alone.
Oh really?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that part.
I gotta find more valves. Oh, I don't like this room.
Check that one on the wall in there and make sure it's... Oh,
Did
wait,
you
that
get this one?
Yeah, no, okay, didn't finish. Okay, Clump killed me before.
Will Clump kill me while I'm turning this?
Yes.
Probably.
That's Clump when you
That's how he
first.
killed me.
Oh god.
Okay, this one is
Check
already
the other
done.
one on
Okay,
the
I
wall
got
back
it.
there.
Yes,
Okay,
yours.
where?
Oh, wait, I checked all the way.
Uh-huh. Clump, clump, clumpity, clump, 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 clump.
Alright, go back and check if the
Oh,
water
there's
level's
one.
full or not. That was already been turned
That
to
one's
turn that
done.
one. Check the same room that you were in before, because there should be a valve in there that I just started turning, but I don't know if I finished it or not.
Well, that one I tried to turn, it ain't doing nothing, so that one's...
Yeah, that one already turned.
So if I'm in the water, Clump won't get me, right?
Nope.
That's the theory.
No, he'll leave you alone. Just don't go in
Okay.
water that's got, like, parasites in it. Then you will die.
Well, that's lovely.
Well, I mean, that's how it is.
I don't like parasite water.
They bitch ass complaining about my food.
Oh, hi!
Hello.
Da-da-da. Where are all the valves? Where are... Oh, there's a
Yeah,
Clump!
yeah.
In the water. In the
He
water.
didn't want it for me.
Am I safe in
Okay,
the
that
water?
was.
Yes.
Am I safe? I don't know. Oh my god. I did not like this. Run, Vashu!
It's already full, but now
Clump's
what?
after you.
Now we go back
Oh
up top.
god.
Huh?
Then we go back up top.
Gotta get back to the ladders.
Yeah, I need to.
Ugh. Look at Clump. Look at him
at these
go.
now.
Oh god.
I'm behind you.
Clump. Clump, clump, clump,
I got stuck. Okay, there we go.
I am so gonna get eaten if I try. Oh, he's going for you. Oh god, are we
Not
gonna
anymore.
get up the ladder quick enough? I think you made it. Alright,
I made
I'm gonna... Oh man, I don't know how I'm gonna get out of here and get to the ladder. Oh god. This is not... Is there
sun's
another
coming out again.
stairway? There's a stairway out of this water. It's closer to the ladders. I hope. Oh god. Can I get out? Shot. Damn, the only way out is way over there. Ugh, and then I gotta time it with the clump. Alright. I'm gonna try my darndest to survive this. Okay, so I gotta wait for Clump to make his rounds. So, where'd he go? Dude, he like totally left. What the hell?
I'm on the loading screen, by the way. I'm just waiting for you, Ama.
I know. Okay, there he is. Okay. Okay, I gotta make sure. Okay, I think I could get this. I think I can, maybe. I think I can. Hello, get up the ladder, get up the ladder. Oh, I did it.
Let's go.
Heck yeah, boy. Alright, where do we go now? Back to the raft?
Yep.
Okay. We survived the clump. Leave me huffing and puffing. I'm all exhausted.
Let me bring the raft close to you. Or just go into the water.
Yeah!
Oh yeah.
I'm on! Yay!
Raptorsy.
What?
Ama, you drive.
I'm so. Okay.
Raptorsy.
Changing lines. Good luck, everyone.
I'm a good driver. Or
I turn now.
boat rower.
Go to bears.
Should we go this ladder here, I guess? Because that looks like a waterfall. So.
No, I'll be a good girl.
Yeah.
I'm gonna die. Eating that.
Are you eating a sandwich again?
No. I'm eating food.
Did you die? Did you just jump to your death?
No, I'm right here. Oh!
No.
Yeah, now I did.
Bridge just went like kaput.
Bridge of
That was
Charabethia said,
funny.
fuck you, bitch.
Oh, we got these valves again. Okay, hang on. Okay, I think I got all of them in time. Hopefully.
I think I mine in time too.
Alright! We can get back on the raft! Heck yeah!
Is okay, it's going up, yes. Let's go.
Well, Slayer is dead. That was
What a
funny.
surprise.
Hold on, I haven't.
Where should we go? I guess we go into that down there. This is relaxing. This is so relaxing and not scary at all.
Ooh.
Another 2 ladders, so I guess we'll each take a side in case there's valves on both sides. I'll
Yep.
go left, you go right.
Alright.
Teamwork. Also, I think that water right there might be dangerous.
I actually saw the amoeba like in full HD right there.
Yeah, like that's probably bad. Like I wouldn't go in that. Avoid.
No, there's nothing on this side.
Okay, well let me have a look over here. Why watch there be clumps or some crap. Clump, clump, clump. Oh, there's another ladder. Well, I guess I'll go up the ladder. Probably be something
What?
bad up there. I betcha. Oh, this place is such a maze.
Such amazing.
I was gay, bro.
I guess can't go up that ladder. It's kind of tilted. Oh, this looks lovely. I feel like there's gonna be something horrible. You know?
No, there's nothing in
Just-
here.
Yeah, that's what you think.
No, I mean, there's nothing, no lever, nor anything.
Until
Oh.
a clump gets us.
Oh, there's a ladder in
Oh,
here now.
there's a door. Ah. Okay.
I'm waiting for you though. It's a
I'm
loading screen.
coming. I'm a coming. Oh, I don't like this noise. There's definitely gonna be clumps in here. Hey, Slayer's alive again. We made it to like a
Okay,
new
there are
spot.
more.
Damn, I want to be
flashlights
carried.
Yeah, you just want to munch on your sandwich.
What's my sandwich?
here. What's your sandwich?
Well, it's beef and egg noodles.
Ooh, that sounds good. Oh, look, it's a climby thing. Oh no.
Oh shit.
Isn't that
Don't.
water bad?
Yeah, it's bad. I tried to do the jump, but the character does not jump that high.
Okay, I'm
You
gonna
have to
try.
run, and he gets tired really fast.
Platforming! Platforming! I'm bad at platforming!
Good luck with that.
Oh, the water killed me.
Welcome
Oh,
to
bro.
my life.
Aw,
Oh, there's a clump.
great. It's not good. Evil amoeba water and clumps. There's a staircase. Woo.
Clump. Oh, shit.
Jump in the water. Hopefully it's good water. Oh crap.
That's safe.
Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Oh shit! Heck, lump.
Evil Kabeeble.
Oh, he
Evil
was through
Kabibble.
this water.
Oh yeah, he can wade
If
through
it's
regular water.
shallow. Oh no, that's where I died. Good luck trying to get through that. Oh, you
He's better.
did so. Oh no,
Oh.
you're gonna die.
Spicy
Oh
water.
no.
Yeah, I'm dead.
Ah. You got. You
Wasn't that
got
hard?
it
I just
right
missed the
where-
last one.
I suck at platforming. You know where I gotta jump.
I can jump on these nuts. Got him.
We know you can.
I'm gonna try
up.
it again until I
That's on these
get
nuts,
it.
you bitch.
Oh fuck! Fuck! Fuck!
Oh fuck!
Oh.
Yeah, maybe we don't take the platform away.
That was the I feel. Oh, heck, lump.
I'm so bad at that, like platforming, jumping on things. Oh my god. Oh, that was pathetic. That was so awful.
These nuts are in your head. these nuts,
I'm missing
these
one,
nuts.
and I
Is
don't
your
see
brain
it. Oh,
dead?
there it is.
Clomp, clomp will eat your nuts. Yeah. He likes peanut M&Ms.
That sounds like the least satisfying thing I've ever heard.
Chirp.
And I've said some satisfying things.
So, like, do we have to get up that little jumpy part to proceed?
No,
No.
we can do it on all. On
it's
the
full.
other
We can
level.
leave, yeah.
Slayer, go back.
I'm dead, aren't I? Oh.
No, so who the
I
fuck
was
is
wondering
on
why
the
the fuck I
entrance?
couldn't spectate. I was wondering why I couldn't
Ew.
spectate. I thought I was dead this whole time.
Stop munching on that dick sandwich.
Why don't you munch on my dick sandwich? How about that? I'm sure Mal would agree with me. You eat a dick
I don't know,
sandwich
she's
in your
asleep.
mouth and in your life. Twin will agree with me. She hears everything I say. That's why she twin. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. He ain't loving it.
Ba-da-ba-ba.
Wow, it's crazy. I'm leaving it out, you know. Goodbye.
It was perfectly timed.
As all things should be.
Whee! Oh, look, a triangular doorway. Oh,
Oh, look,
back
two
to the
goobers
raft.
aren't in the raft yet.
I'm coming. I'm coming. There we go. All right, start steering.
Is he on the raft too?
Yeah, we're both on the raft.
Well, I'm not supposed to know. I'll see you.
I'm
I'll
right
see you.
behind
I'll
you.
see white people.
We're in amoeba water. Oh God, it's everywhere.
I don't see white people.
I see dead people. Whoa, whoa, what was that? Was that a soundboard thing?
No. It was a
That
sound of
was
us
in the
failing the
game?
mission. We'll get him next time.
It was?
No.
What? You're messing with me.
Clearly.
What the hell? Oh God, damn it with the soundboard!
He's like a 40-year-old man. You gotta use a soundboard.
You're freaking me out.
That's not hard, to be honest.
I keep thinking it's
Jeff.
something happening in the game.
That
I'm getting
freaking you out is not
scared.
hard to achieve.
It's not hard. That's what he said.
Ah ha ha ha.
Give me the pill, it's not hard. There's nothing here.
I never need a pill. I'm always hard. Yeah, I said that. I'm
Where
gonna
am I
fuck.
going?
Fuck you if you don't like it.
Where am I going?
I say what I want. Do what I want. Be what I want.
Where am I going?
What I want.
Up. That's where you're going. Up the ramps. To the ladder. To come downstairs. To join us. Yeah, where he said.
You know the I just heard golden. Ah, I love that freaking movie.
I couldn't care less about it. Why you doing freaking long? Never watched it?
Yo, K-pop
Probably
Demon
never will.
Hunters
It's actually
is
really good.
awesome.
Just,
Yeah,
just
K-pop
say-
Demon Hunters
just
is
because
awesome.
it's actually pretty good doesn't mean I'm actually gonna watch it.
Crap! Oh crap! Oh crap!
I'd
I'm
sooner
stuck
watch
in the
Dr.
water.
Stone again than
I'm
that.
stuck in the water.
That's what she
Why
said.
can't I get out? Help!
Oh, I don't know. Try
help
those
me.
stairs
Oh,
over
blood.
here. Jesus Lord Christ.
Okay. Whew. Oh shoot! There's a clump. Oh,
clump?
that's lovely.
Is it a
I call
clump
him
or a
clump.
clump?
Coy's
It's a
plump
clump.
fiction.
Is that plural for clump? Clump?
Oh, there. He clumps. He clumps. He clumps.
Whether it's a group of
He's in
them,
my
we call them
bed.
plimps.
No. Let's not say we did. Because that sounded way too
Okay,
close to another word.
I turned one of the things, and there's an arrow on the wall.
You really are a 40-year-old man, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Clearly.
I just have ADHD and I have a lot of fun with the soundboard.
Alright, Rich from UV Tech USA.
Bad.
Oh shit, I didn't even see him. Hi. Whoopsie. Oh, whoopsie.
Watch out! When I went down
Did you
there
get
with
that
that
valve
arrow,
behind you?
the clump was like right there.
Oh, I'm
I
aware,
did get
because
the
he came and
valve in
killed me.
there. You see the clump? Oh yeah, there's the clump.
He got moved to Dr. Stone.
I did get that valve though, that he ran past, so don't worry about that. Maybe you gotta go up that ladder, I don't know.
No,
That
that
ladder
takes
is
it
for
back.
the exit.
Oh,
He doesn't have to go bruh, 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 bruh.
clump.
Really?
Oh, there's
I don't
a
like it. Stop it.
That's Ado.
I don't give a fuck
I like
who that is.
Ado.
I hate it.
Ado is great.
I went to
Don't
her
like it.
concert in Barcelona though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but that doesn't sound like my Dr. Stone, bro.
That's the
sounds
opening
like
of
someone
Dr.
trying to acapella it. Now that sounds like Dr. Stone.
Yeah, the thing is that sound of Ado singing Good Morning Warriors because she was playing Minecraft and someone said Ohio and she just remembered the lyrics for a second.
Oh,
Oh.
I have no idea what the fuck that is. But okay.
She was literally just having a brain rot moment.
Are you saying Ado or Adele?
Ado. A-D-O.
No clue what that is.
Is the Japanese singer that made the songs for One Piece film Red.
See, we're more nerds than even Slayer is.
So what you're saying is shows I'm never gonna watch. Good job. I'm sorry, but I can't, like, after 4 Kids dropped One Piece and the other fucking company, Funimation, took over, I don't know, man. The voice actors changed, things got weird, I didn't like it.
I mean, voice actors changed because, I don't know, half of them died?
Not in One Piece.
One Piece, yeah.
Show is
well,
over,
in English,
like,
I don't know, but in
1100
Japanese,
episodes.
yes, they did.
And that's another
few of
reason
them
why
died.
I'm never gonna watch it. Because that's way too many episodes for me to be catching up
And they're
on.
actually making a remake
Fuck
to
that.
reduce the amount of episodes.
I'll watch the fucking live action One Piece.
It's worth.
From what I hear, it's actually worth watching.
I actually watched
He
it.
followed you into the water, what?
He's stuck.
Good, leave him
Get
there.
on the stairs.
Fuck that
I'm
guy.
trying to. Bro, he's stuck on this in the front of the stairs.
Oh, this is so bad.
Let me
Oh my
get.
god. Oh, okay,
Nice to
well.
hear.
Yeah, there's a stairway. There you go.
Stairways to heaven.
Can Clump just stay there forever? Just stay stuck?
I hope so. We're gonna find out.
Yeah.
Yep,
Alright.
he's stuck.
Oh. Alright.
Oh, he's stuck.
Sick.
He ain't going nowhere.
Bye, Clump.
Clump done
Take a
fucked it
dump,
up.
Clump.
Clump fucked it up.
Okay, that one is good. Okay, good.
I think he
Yeah.
passed one that was.
Okay, remember there's a clump down here.
You mean the same clump that's in the water now?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if there's more
There's
than
only one
thing,
clump.
let me clump my thing. Clump my thing, let me clump my thing.
I guess, let's see, where should you go now?
I think he was near the last one. It was in the same room with the clump.
Oh, damn.
I mean, it's not that big of an issue. Since clump's in the water now, you keep forgetting the crux of the
Hopefully
matter
he
being
stays
as
there.
clump stuck. Oh, no, there it is.
Is that one? Heck yeah! Bless you! Bless you!
Yeah.
Bless y'all.
Sorry, I'm allergic to bullshit. There you go. I'm also allergic to shitty soundboard sounds. Ugh. God damn. I'm also allergic
That's
to
where I
cleaning,
got
apparently.
clumpinated.
Every time I clean a cow, jeez. I blame my rabbit.
Vashu's killing it.
Finally, someone else does it. Tired of doing all the work.
Ooh.
I'm tired of carrying this
You're not
goddamn
doing shit,
team.
bro. You're only eating this
Good, I'm
sandwich.
tired of carrying this team.
You're carrying these nuts in your mouth.
Nah, it's Mal's job. Ah, fuck. I went
What'd you
wrong.
do?
Go on the ladder so I can reset myself. I went down the wrong ladder.
That's a really good song. Actually, I really love
It
show.
is. When you said Ado, I was like, that's the song I think of.
La 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 la.
Na na, I'm ready for my show.
See, when I say I have to go, ah. So,
Yeah, on it.
Freaky,
Where the fucking boat?
I told you, I'm on the fucking ladder. I went down and I'm stuck. Ooh,
Am I in the wrong
did you
layer?
not hear me?
Where's
Hi.
Okay, now go back up.
Well,
Where's the
okay.
unk? Oh, there's the unk.
I don't know where I am going.
I'm gonna put
And I
Adol
don't
on the
know
stream. I
what
don't
to
care.
do. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
What?
Where do we go? And what
Where's
do
Shadow?
we
Here he is. Let's put some backlight.
What about flashlights?
Can we climb up there? Should we? Oh no. Is this possible to climb up this?
I'm
Oh.
just going back down.
I'm climbing up the wall into
That's
the
what's
dark
up.
abyss. I can't see nothing. I don't like it up here. It's kind of weird. It's very weird. Ah. It's gotta be a doorway or something. Oh, what is this here? It's a ramp.
It's a ramp.
I think we gotta
Where the fuck
activate
the boat
one
go?
more. I don't know, but we think we have to activate one more.
Oh, there's the boat.
I'm trying to get there.
Oh, it's on the amoeba.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, which means we gotta activate one more to raise the level.
Ooh, ooh, ooh.
So either we didn't finish that one, or there's another section that we have to go through.
I am very confused as to where I am and where I'm going.
That's like
That's
you 24/7,
for sure.
so that's nothing new.
Oh, I'm a woman. I got no sense of direction, damn it.
You got a lot of you lack
She's
a lot
had
of
it, not me.
senses as a woman. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say. I'm gonna keep it at that.
Ooh. Okay. I found a... What the fuck is that? Oh, it's the raft. We're floating. Look at you're floating. I like that you're floating above the water, like you're not on the water. That's funny.
Oh, I think the game just visually got bugged. That's it.
Well,
Okay,
damn, I went down the ladder,
I guess we find more valves.
Just keep going.
Yes.
Leave me here.
Are you dead, Slayer, or are you alive somewhere?
Could be.
Well,
Hey,
look
I'm
at
gonna pick the boat and
Tube.
pick up Slayer because if not, we fucked up. Because there's no
Oh,
way up on
no.
this side.
Uh-oh.
Went down another ladder. I don't know if it was the right one though.
Wait, where do I go to get Slayer? I don't even know where he is.
Down a ladder.
Good question.
Probably the same ladder we came from. But we might have missed a valve, so. Athena, what are you doing over there? I just cleaned the okay thing. Nobody can see scratching and scratching. She won't get slapped shit out of that. It's alright midnight? You mean it's already midnight? Or it's alright midnight?
Oh shit, that was lightning. It's
Lightning?
already 6:30 a.m. So I'm probably gonna see the sun in 30 minutes.
Uh-oh. Should we,
I see
like,
my
call
ass
it
in
a
bed
night
in
or
30
something?
minutes. Maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know. What y'all feeling? I got nowhere to be tomorrow. Well, I have a barbecue to go to at like 5 o'clock, but that's not till 5 o'clock. And the Fortnite event's tomorrow at 4:55 p.m. So.
Oh yeah, tomorrow is the power hour, right?
Yeah, it's the story event and then the power hour following with all the mythics being
Okay,
rare
send
and
me
everything
the
starting.
timestamp to the rip to know what time to connect
I'm
with you.
not sending you shit. It's 1:55 p.m. EST. Figure it out. Motherfucker, learn time zone.
STD.
Yeah, STD. It's ET.
Is it
Eastern
2,
time.
right? Or
Eastern
5?
time. 1:55.
1:55. EST 2.
It's just ET now. We don't go by EST anymore.
There's...
It's either ET
That's
or
7.
EDT.
Okay, at 8 p.m. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so it's later in the day.
It's a big-ass spiral staircase.
I'm still going down
right
the
here.
ladder. Just waiting for someone to come help
Oh,
me.
so we're stuck because we are all on different loading screen.
man.
I'll
Hey,
be
look,
back.
I just found somebody's flashlight.
Well, if I hit
in the
restart
tube.
level, I'm pretty sure it's gonna restart all the way back to where we started. So I can
There's
quit
a
game.
flashlight in the yellow tube.
Yeah, because I went there.
Oh.
So you want to just quit here then for now?
I
I
think we
just went
should, yeah.
into the blue tube. Wait, I want to see where I end up. Oh, connection.
No, we
lost.
cannot see where we end up because we went on different areas.
Oh,
No,
Oh,
if you
that
guys
was
went down the
fun.
tube, that was the exit. Fuck.
Yeah.
it was?
Yes.
And you just ended the game when we
Ah,
made
whatever.
it
We'll
to
figure
the
it out
end?
later. We didn't end the game. That game's not over yet. Trust me, we still got plenty of other sections to go through. Pretty sure there's
Oh my
another birthday
God.
section. There's one where fucking monsters come out and you have to shoot fucking eyeballs. Yeah, that one's gonna be
Oh,
fucking
God.
hella fun. Especially when you shoot them with rockets and you can blow yourself up with them. It's fun as fuck.
Wow.
Yeah, we still got a ways to go. We're not done yet.
What?
Game's a lot longer
was
than I
fun.
remember. Yeah, it's had fun. And I
Yeah,
got to
that
do this
was
repeatedly.
awesome.
Fuck my fingers. Yeah.
And well, it's my bedtime. I'm an old lady. I gotta go to bed.
I'm an
Yeah, I
old
gotta
fox.
go.
Old fox needs sleepies.
And I'm hungry too, so I'm gonna get a little snacky wacky.
See,
and
you
then
should have
I'm gonna
got.
go
You
to
should have
bed.
stuffed your face with a dick like me. I mean, not a dick. I mean, sandwich.
Oh,
Not even a sandwich, but whatever. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much for coming out and watching us play the game. I'm sorry for all the fucking issues on my end, but you know,
Skill
we
issues.
made it work. Fuck your mom. Anyways, don't give Bosh no follows. He doesn't deserve it. He's a bitch. And go follow Alma. She's awesome. We love her. I'm gonna call it a night. I'm probably not gonna raid out because it's fucking 12 o'clock at night and I'm tired. I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
true,
same.
true.
Peace out, sauerkrauts. I love you all. I'll see you tomorrow for the Fortnite Lab shit and probably playing some other games before that. So, peace, motherfuckers. Bye.
Bye.
bye-bye.
Foxu
Have a
out,
good
bitch.
night, everybody.
More Foxu upgrades coming.
Bye bye.
Also,